Hello, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the SC2 Improved Team League. My name is FearDrag, and today I'm joined here by @CNC How you doing, man?
I would be doing a lot better if you did not use my Twitter handle. You just called me Cybert. I mean, my gosh, it's bad enough getting people to spell it correctly, and then I've got you.
Well, man, I'll never give that up. But, we are actually going to be jumping into a really awesome series. It is going to be NoDiceGaming versus Team Gravity. And I kind of am being really quick with the intros because these players actually want to get started ASAP. We actually have one of the players, the player from Team Gravity saying, Jig, is saying that actually he has to go soon. So I didn't want to delay this for too long. We've already kind of gone through, wasted a little, like 12 minutes or so doing the map videos and everything. So we're actually going to be jumping straight into the game. And Cybert, I don't know about you, but I'm really excited for this series. Both of these teams, Team Gravity is definitely one of the big top up-and-coming North American teams. And NoDiceGaming has shown time and time again that they are also one of those very strong teams you have to watch out for.
Well, I'm not exactly going to disagree with you, and especially any time where it's like the cast begins and we go from like the music break into it and then we immediately jump into a game. I'm always excited for that. That's how I love opening, where it's like, hey, the music has stopped. We're not going to really mess around. We're going right into a game. And hopefully we get loaded up pretty quickly here, but it is going to be a PvZ to start us off.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming Gravity's Jig is just going to like six pool and then purposefully kill his own hatchery, and then he's like, "Oh, I lost. I gotta go."
Well,
I'm assuming that's what's gonna happen.
We'll see if that's actually his plan right now. As we spawn up here in the top left-hand corner of the map, on top of the yellow Zerg player representing Team Gravity, it is going to be Gravity's Jig.
And in the top right corner, as the orange Protoss from NoDiceGaming, it is Cowman, which I thought was Crowman for way too long, because I can't read.
I mean, they're both animals, so you weren't entirely off base, right?
I hope not.
But it's actually pretty cool. I really like that Cowman is actually already coming out for NoDiceGaming. I mean, Cowman actually used to be the team captain of Team Extraterrestrials. I don't actually know if he's the captain now of NoDiceGaming, but he is definitely a very strong player. And same goes for Jig. Jig actually was a former WCS Challenger League player, made it into WCS Challenger League. And, some people will say, oh, well, who cares, if you make it in WCS Challenger League these days, because you're region locked, right, through those qualifiers to get into WCS Challenger League. But actually, he made it through in 2013, in the last season of WCS. And that was back when you were playing in brackets with Koreans and Chinese and everybody entering in. And he got into Challenger League. So really impressive play out of Jig, and he's a pretty weird, aggressive player, so I wouldn't be too surprised to see something crazy out of him.
Which is always good, and for me personally, Nimbus and Foxtrot Labs, I always get mixed up. And so at first I thought the map was a little bit different than it was. Unfortunately for Jig, he is going to be scouting the wrong way. But if I am thinking correct, this is a best of 7 all-kill format, is that correct?
Yeah, this is in fact best of 7 all kill, and I'm pretty interested to see how that's actually going to go, because when you have players like Jig, who again have sort of weird styles, he's not afraid to be aggressive or throw out some kind of crazy all-ins at his opponent. Sometimes you can, like, even if your opponents aren't super familiar with that fact that you like to go for those kind of crazy things, like for example, going 3 hatch before pool, a little bit on the crazier side. But yeah, I mean, like, your opponent can start to catch on to that in a best of 7.
Yeah, not necessarily an all-in, as you did mention that a little bit before, so we're not going to necessarily be seeing some sort of, like, suicidal gameplay, of course, with 3 hatch before pool. If we did see that, I would be like, alright, this is something a little bit different. But yeah, there's definitely, with the best of 7 all-kill, depending, I don't know exactly how the teams are set up, so maybe someone's, like, just getting off work, but they're probably going to be watching the stream. They're probably going to be looking at, okay, what did you do in the last game? Whoever just won that, how can we best put a player up against you who's going to counter the style that you showed or counter a style that you typically do play? So yeah, with the best of 7 all-kill format, definitely something that does have to come into play.
Yeah, and it's actually really interesting because it deviates into sort of 2 different trains of thoughts for how you pick your next player, right? Because if you end up losing, then you say, okay, well, do we send out the exact same race? Because now we know how that player plays in this particular matchup. We know how, say, Jig's ZVP is going to go. So do we just send out another Zerg player that tries to deal with that using the information they just learned? Or do they say, you know what, that matchup looked pretty strong, let's send out a Terran player, or let's send out a Protoss player? So it's kind of interesting how that ends up playing out, but hold that thought. We actually have a little bit of aggression coming out from Cowman.
Yeah, he didn't go for the Zealot, so it's just Stalker Mothership Core as of right now. A second Stalker going to be making its way across the map, and these two Lings, well, they're going to be able to sneak into the main base most likely, but are they really going to be able to do a whole lot? Not really, and I mean, you could say, oh yeah, they'll get scouting off, but there's nothing really too crazy going down. The Stargate will be spotted, but the Mothership Core starting to move in, and the Spine Crawler has been deployed. A couple of Queens on the front line.
Yeah, Queen's doing an okay job. They're actually going after the Mothership Core. One Queen looks like it's very well going to die trying to chase it, and he doesn't actually get the Mothership Core. Now with the second Stalker there, he's actually done a decent amount of damage, and he has enough energy to recall now.
Yep, I mean, he's still got both of his Stalkers alive, so that is definitely a viable strategy, and the Mothership Core starting to rebuild those shields, so it's just going to be even more difficult to stop. Now, the Spine Crawler is up. It is going to be planting itself right onto the front line, forcing a lot of these units back, and the Mothership Core is getting pretty darn close.
Oh, the Queen stops to lay a
the
creep tumor. Oh, man. And the Queen actually stopped to lay a creep tumor down for a second, so, he doesn't actually get that Mothership Core. I almost feel like he may have been able to get it if he just kept chasing it, but, you know, I can't really blame him for trying to back up at that point. He already had to make a ton of Zerg. This is... For two Stalkers and a Mothership Core to make this many Zerglings this early on, you've got to try and make some kind of damage happen over here.
Yeah, that is a lot of Zerglings pumped right out of the gate. Of course, with the Sentry here, the Stalker is going to be getting shielded a little bit by that force field. But, oh my, the Stalker actually died. Usually the purpose of the force field is so that you don't lose units. So that was actually a pretty nice trade. A couple of Zerglings for that Stalker. And of course, after this, he's droning up pretty heavily. So, and actually, they might get a full surround on these sentries. They don't quite get the surround, but they do right there. One sentry goes down. The second one
oh my god!
As well. And now the doors are open. So is Jig going to be trying to follow this up with more aggression? Right now, he's going for that layer. So the answer is no. But
this is an absolutely terrible situation right now for Cowman. I mean, having these Zerglings get into his base, yeah, he does clean up, but he lost 2 sentries, 2 Stalkers, he lost all of his ground units, and those are intense. Those are very, very gas-intensive units to be losing right now. That's going to delay any kind of follow-up tech beyond the Stargate. So we're just going to see these Phoenix try and move across the map, but oh man, I think Jig is feeling pretty good about himself right now.
Yep, he begins Zergling speed, and he may be losing a couple of Overlords to these Phoenixes, which I guess if they get some really nice kills on Overlords, it may end up supply blocking Jig. So that is something that he has to worry about. And the Spore Crawlers, they're already down. For the most part, this drone line is going to be defended. And Cowman doesn't actually get that Overlord. He should be able to pick off a couple of these, but really, that's not exactly the victories that you want in this point.
Yeah, he's going to be able to get some pickoffs here and there, but again, losing all those units, you have to do some kind of nice damage. That's, you know, going to be able to halt the Zerg opponent in his tracks a little bit, but we actually have a good influx of Zerglings coming out across the map, in addition to the ones that are already kind of out right now, and now going to be poking their way. Oh my god. I don't know if this third can actually go up safely.
It probably will be getting canceled here. The sentries are here to defend it, and they may end up having to throw down force fields just to force the Zerglings away.
Zergling speed in 4 seconds.
And nope.
Well, with the new influx of Zerglings, actually, these sentries are incredibly vulnerable. Force shields go down. They're pretty good force shields.
Yeah, they definitely are all right. Going to be trapping away those Zerglings. Zerglings might go for the wraparound on the Nexus, but he would be basically committing all of those Zerglings, and he's not even guaranteed to cancel the Nexus at this point. It's been going up for quite a while, and as far as drones and probes go, it's actually only a difference of 5, and the third base was considerably earlier for our Zerg player.
Indeed, and oh man, you know, Cowman has actually done a good job kind of stabilizing, holding on. Obviously, losing those earlier units did kind of suck. It really hurt his ability to put on pressure beyond these Phoenixes on his Zerg opponent, who, you know, has had the opportunity to kind of do whatever he wanted. But honestly, I feel like Jig is kind of just uses as an opportunity to make more and more Zerglings, more drones getting picked off by these Phoenixes. So Phoenixes are working out pretty well for Cowman.
We've got the Enduring Locust upgrade going to be purchased. Colossus are on the way, so he's starting to build towards that composition that you would need to counter Swarm Host. And I guess maybe that's his plan for the macro hatch in his main. So I was a little bit curious as to what he was going to be doing that. So he will have 5 hatcheries in total once the 4th base finishes up to pump larva off. This is a lot of Zerglings going to be coming in. They're splitting the difference between the main and the 3rd base. They're not necessarily getting a huge amount of work done just because there's not very many probes at the 3rd.
Oh man, but still they're managed to kill off 12 probes already, and there were some of those probes at the natural expansion. Well, the Zerglings there do get cleaned up, but I mean, Calman just keeps taking damage to these Zerglings, and I'm really impressed by the fact that Jig is constantly able to get those Zerglings into the base, despite the fact that there's, what, 7 or 8 sentries constantly just ready to force field.
Yeah, it is quite surprising that basically ever since these sentries were built, they haven't been too effective. One queen is going to be going down, and if Cowman doesn't know that there's swarm hosts on the way, he's going to know relatively soon here as well. As they all pop out right there, he's like, oh, okay. So
just
if he
lifts it up,
already
gives
know
it a
that,
tag.
Yeah, he was just like, tag, you're it. I'm not actually going to kill you.
Just to let you know, I saw the swarm host.
I totally know you've got swarm hosts, though.
Cowman's actually moving out right now. This may just be a creep cleanup maneuver, just because, you know, he has a motion core over there. He can actually recall out, but this is still a very, very small squadron of units. There's no backup pylons to warp in units. I don't know how much I like this.
I mean, I guess it's relatively low risk. It's not like the swarm hosts are going to be able to insta-kill this entire army, and once he sees the Locust, he may just decide to recall or back off of creep. But I mean, he was starting Void Rays. I don't know if he canceled it.
Oh, don't lose those sentries. Okay, Locust end up dying, but you know, with 10 Corruptors also coming out right now for Jig, he's going to be very much prepared to deal with the fact that there's a Colossus, but also, if he snipes a Mothership Core, this entire army's forfeit. That could actually just be game-ending if this army just ends up dying.
Yeah, one Corruptor does get sniped down kind of at the 4th base for Jig, but there's more Void Rays on the way, which will be nice for that army composition, as well as the +1 air attacks for Protoss. That'll also be relatively nice in dealing with those Corruptors, but the Swarm Hosts, they're moving out across the map. They're off creep at this point, but they could deploy at any moment and start assaulting that 3rd. We'll have to see exactly how Cowman decides to deal with this, as he's starting to build towards that air toss, but he's not going super hard into it.
Yeah, and it's actually really interesting. Both of these players, I mean, they've been aggressive to each other, but they've been actually in pretty big macro mode regardless. I mean, we see 74 probes, 80 drones already. Mothership Core actually gets snagged off by those Corruptors, but both these players are really preparing for the later stages of the game. I think that Jig's Swarm Host count is just a little bit too low right now. He's going to be pretty vulnerable here.
Yes, he could indeed be losing quite a few of these Swarm Hosts. He's forced to pick up and run. The force fields are going to be cutting them off. Not exactly perfect, but good enough to get the job done. The Observer here is on the front lines, and there's no Overseer here to allow the Corruptors to snipe it down. The Colossus count is going to be draining a little bit here, but the Void Ray is absorbing a lot of shots for those Colossus.
Oh man, but I mean, with all the ground units over here picked off with the Protoss player, amazingly enough, the Corruptors are going to be able to snag off that last Colossus. 2 more Void Rays now coming into the mix to try and defend against the Corruptors. They're going to do a good job of it, but now the Swarm Hosts still remain in a decently sized number. They're going to actually be able to force the retreat from those sentries who just don't have that much energy left over to force field.
Yep, and with the Corruptors pretty much clearing the skies of everything as the last Void Ray goes down, there isn't a whole lot here from our TOS player to combat these Swarm Hosts. The Swarm Hosts do move in a little bit sooner, and Zealots, well, they're nice if they can get on top of the Swarm Hosts, but with the Locust pouring towards them, we may not actually be seeing that.
And behind this, Jig is taking that 5th expansion. I mean, he's basically just getting into the enormous economy that he's going to need to replenish any kind of Zergling units or any Corruptors that he ends up losing. He's looking to be in a great position right now. Zealots now getting surrounded a little bit by these Zerglings, but they do have superior upgrades, +2 weapons on those Zealots. They're going to be two-shotting those Zerglings. The Corruptor count is staying strong, though, and that's going to make it difficult. I would love to even just see Jig get an Overseer in the mix, start picking up those Observers. There's nothing to kill the Corruptors.
Yeah, picking off the Observers just makes the Swarm Host that much more powerful, and finally Jig does fix his rally for the Locusts. And I do like him bringing the Zerglings all along the left side there, just forcing a extra little bit of flanking. But there's 2 Colossus on the field and a couple of Void Rays. Of course, with this many Corruptors, that force is not going to last very long. We'll have to see if the Stalkers can actually get some work done, as +3 weapons is started, but it's a long way off. Yeah,
Cowman actually getting both of those 2 Stargates up, as well as the fact that I think does he have 2 robotic facilities? No, he actually just has 1, but I guess he waited until he had those 2 Colossus out, which is really, really important. Not just kind of sacrificing those Colossus to the Corruptors. he's done a good job. He's gotten up a decently sized army, but I'm still a little bit afraid for him because, oh my god, now there's mules coming out.
Yep, and I mean, Void Rays can deal with an army composition from, or an air-based composition from the Zerg, but when it's in this sort of overwhelming numbers, 3 Void Rays just are not going to cut it. Even a couple of Zealots getting picked off here, just really minor annoyance there for Cowman, but is starting to build up a nice, healthy number of ground units, although those can very easily fall prey to the Locust.
Yeah, and honestly, this is sort of the point in the game where a Protoss player really has to be prepared for the massive number of mules that are going to be coming out. Because again, we have a massive... Oh, actually,
yep.
Cancel on the 3rd. Nice job over there. But I mean, Jake is just building up this mules count, and he's going to have the economy to build up an insane number of those guys.
Yep, on the right side, I guess it's kind of the 3rd base at this point, since the original 3rd ended up getting taken out and then canceled. The 4th base, the probes are forced to turn and fight, and while they do clean up the Zerglings, that was pretty annoying. Oh, a couple of Swarmos actually going to be getting picked off here. The Mutas and Corruptors are trying to find a favorable angle to engage, and potentially we could see some really nice damage coming out from Cowman, but he might just end up getting trapped between a rock and a hard place.
Oh man, all the Mules are pretty much gone at this point. It's just the Corruptors, and the Voiders have been picked off as well. The Colossus is now going to be vulnerable, but the Swarmos, they need to release that next wave of Locusts to try and deal with these Stalkers.
You know what would be really nice right here is an Overseer to pick off that Observer, because the only way the Stalkers can kill off the Swarm hosts is because of that Observer. Just imagine if it was like, oh hey, yeah, you may have killed my ground army, but you can't actually kill the Swarm hosts.
Exactly, I think
nice.
That would be so nice right now, and that Observer just going to be chilling around over here inside of the creep area of Jig, but you know, I have to say, Cowman has done a pretty good job of just maintaining a decently sized probe count and still has those 4 bases. He's going to be running into a bit of trouble, though. I feel like he cannot continue to just trade away these units against these Locusts.
Yeah, he definitely has to make sure that his engagements are favorable for him and smart engagements, but when you got stuff pressuring your 4th base at this stage of the game and you just canceled your 3rd again, well, actually, I guess it's kind of 3rd, 4th reverse, but
yeah,
it's so hard to try to force favorable engagement in this situation versus Locust when your army gets split up like that and Zerglings are trashing the probe line. Goodbye, Nexus.
That Nexus is definitely gone. Oh, finish it! Finish the Nexus! Finish the Nexus! There we go. And he's going to be able to get out of there, only losing a handful of these Zerglings. Going to even get a free Colossus before he actually moves out. But, I mean, he can replace those Zerglings. The Corruptors and Mutalisks are the ones that he has a harder time replacing. But he keeps those alive.
Yep, and Void Rays can actually get any shots off on units that really matter, as we do have a lot of Stalkers going to be picking off the Corruptors, but will the Stalkers actually be able to deal with the Locusts that are just eating them away? Because, yeah, they're killing off the Corruptors, but what good does that actually do you as the GG gets thrown down and Jig takes the victory?
And that's going to put an end to game number 1. Team Gravity already moving up in the series currently 1-0 after some really cool play out of both of these guys. But, wow, I mean, that was actually a really crazy game because it felt so hyper-aggressive. I felt like probes are going down left and right. The Phoenixes were picking up drones, but we still had really, really high worker counts from both of those players. I think it was like, what, at least for a little bit, it was like 80-some drones and a solid 80 or so probes, which honestly is more probes than you actually usually see out of a Protoss player by like the 14-minute mark.
It was quite a high number of workers across the board, as you mentioned, for both teams. And I mean, yeah, but as you mentioned earlier in the game, Jig just doing a good job of staying active with his units when and where he could. He wasn't suicidal with them, which is an important thing to note, as he was aggressive without being suicidal. But yeah, pushing in with Zerglings, attacking at multiple fronts, not letting his opponent just take those favorable engagements of like, I've got my whole army here, and I'm going to go just after your Swarm host. But again, I would have loved to see an Overseer or 2 just to snipe that Observer.
Yeah, I really think that would have been cool. But you know what? Jig, in the end, he still ends up winning the game, so we can't really even fault him or criticize him too much. I think that Cowman also played it out really well, especially getting up that very, very scary Doomsday composition. But I think even despite the fact that he had a really great economy, he was able to constantly just pump out Colossus and Voiders, he just still seemed to have some trouble actually dealing with that kind of composition that Jig was going for. First of all, there was like the fact that his 3rd expansion kept getting sniped over and over and over again. But even when he would try and engage, he had like what felt like almost a scarier army. He had a decent number of Colossus, he had a big scary air army. he would keep engaging into Locust, and it never really ended up working out for him. I'm not even too sure what I would have changed exactly about Cowman's game, but hopefully another player from Team NoDiceGaming will have a solution if they do end up sending out another Protoss player. But I'm pretty interested to see what kind of player they're actually going to be sending out. Because again, I was talking about this earlier. There's two different sorts of trains of thoughts on, do you send out another player of the same race because now you know exactly what Jig's playstyle is in this matchup? Or do you say like, no, let's send out another player because we don't want to deal with Jig's, ZVP? Like, what do you think is going to be the thought process for NoDiceGaming?
I actually have no idea what their roster looks like. I guess that is pretty important. I'm actually just going to go look it up right now. So, I mean, they do have another Protoss to send out. I'm not exactly sure how strong Corolla is. So, yeah, or Valor, I guess, as they do have, I guess, 3 Protoss. But yeah, after seeing that, they could say, well, hey, you know what? We've got a Zerg who's really good in ZVZ, so we'll send him out. Or it looks like they've got one Terran, but, I mean, sometimes Terran don't really like playing against Zerg, so it does depend exactly on the different playstyles of each of the players, but I'm definitely interested to see in how they decide to play that. It looks like they're a little bit heavier on the Zerg count, so they may decide to go for their best ZVZ player and then hope that he can carry through, if Gravity ends up losing, whatever their next player would be.
Yeah, and it looks like we do know who the next player is. I just want to make sure that everything is in order. Sorry, guys, I will say that normally I actually, Wardy, Jonathan Ward, or Wardy, SC2, is actually casting the SC2 Improved Team League. I am one of the other casters, and of course Cybert is here with me, but today Wardy actually got stung by a wasp, which really sucks. Oh my god, that like really sucks. But he's normally the one running all this stuff, so I'm not as familiar with like the intricate details for all the rules and everything, so it's taking me a little bit longer to figure out all this stuff. Hopefully you guys don't mind the extra downtime as I sort of figure out, okay, well, now we have like this complicated veto map system, and now we know what the first map is, but now how do we figure out what the second map is? Is it just loser pick or what? So
yeah, I don't have to deal with any of that, so I'm happy about that. But you just take your time.
I'll just keep doing that.
Yep. But one quick thing to note, I don't know how much you agree with this, but it felt like in the last game, Cowman had all of the right parts to beat the composition, basically the Swarm Host Corruptor comp that Jig had. It's just that he didn't necessarily have all of the right parts together at the right time. So it's like he was trying to go like the Void Ray Colossus, and then of course have Zealots to absorb a lot of the shots, but he just wasn't able to quite get it there when he needed it. And then he's like, okay, well now I'm going to go for Stalkers, and that kind of worked, but he just didn't have the numbers. So it felt like he had the right pieces, just not the right numbers at the right times.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that sort of assessment of the situation. It's so hard, especially dealing with the Swarm Host thing, because if you let your opponent get up to too large of a number of Swarm Hosts, even if you have like all the big late game tech army units, if you just engage into the Swarm Hosts and you're up against like a large number of those Corruptors and everything, it's just so difficult, right? Because your Stalkers are so busy trying to like deal with these Locusts, they're getting either massacred by them, or they're trying to target fire down the Corruptors to stop them from killing off the Colossus. And if they're doing that, they're dying to the Locust. It's like a catch-22. What do? You have to find a really good engagement, or you just have to have an absurd number of Colossus, which I think we saw Cowman get up to like a decent number, like 3 or 4 Colossus. I think 4 was the maximum number we really saw, but if you have an opponent who has a lot of Corruptors out, you need more than just that, because you have to expect my Colossus is going to start to get massacred very, very quickly. I need to have enough Colossus that can clear up the Locust fast enough so that my Stalkers can start going after some of those Corruptors, and then I can use that to push those Corruptors back and start going after the actual Swarm Hosts themselves, the source and the root of the problem. But, Cybert, I think that we actually have the next player and map determined now.
Which is always a good place to be in, because if you don't know what's coming up next, then it's like, we're just gonna buy time forever. But the other option is to just get 1,000,000 sentries and just force field away all of the Locusts. It's totally viable in every situation.
Oh man, that reminds me, like, obviously I am like a trashy, terrible, like, oh my god, Platinum/Diamond player, depending on which season, but when Heart of the Swarm came out, there were some like players who were like, oh my god, Swarm Hosts are so OP, I'm just gonna rush for them off 2 bases. And there were like these Zerg players who would be like, I'm gonna do a push with like 4 swarm hosts. I'm just gonna move across the map with like 4 or 5 swarm hosts. And I would just be like, why are you doing this? And I have my observer out and everything, and I just like, I move out across the map with 5 or 6 sentries, and I just force field in the swarm host and the locusts, and I kill off the swarm host. Because I'm like, what? You don't have any backup. You don't have any supporting units. And that's one of the things you have to remember about swarm hosts, is that in low numbers, they really aren't all that effective. You have to be very, very conscious of having those supporting units, like the corruptors and everything, or at least positionally, you have to be in a very secure location to make sure that they aren't just getting sniped off by walking around the locusts or whatever.
Yep. But it looks like we're going to be getting that next map set up, and I don't know if you want to like hide who it is that they're sending out against Jig, or if
no, man, let's just bring it out there. Let's just have it out there and say it.
All right, so it is going to be from NoDiceGaming Crowbar. So let me just go ahead and bring up his Wikipedia page. And by Wikipedia, I mean Liquidpedia. And, well, there's not a whole lot here. All right, so that wasn't very helpful. But he is Zerg, so... Actually, he's set to Terran. Now I'm confused, because Liquidpedia normally doesn't lie to me.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and make sure that the players are on the correct races, and then we can go ahead and get these games started. But yeah, guys, let's go ahead and get this game started. The players have given the go-ahead and the ready. And the map is going to be King Sejong Station. It is going to be a ZVZ. And Cybert, I'm not gonna lie.
Roach.
Yeah, we're gonna see a lot of roaches. King Sejong Station is just renowned. It's like famous for having swarm hosts on it. But I'm not sure if we're really gonna be seeing. I don't actually see that many swarm hosts plays in ZVZ on this map. Really, like it usually is just stuck on Roach versus Roach.
Roach Bane, I'm telling you, whichever one of these players brings out the Roach Bane plays. I've seen it work.
You know, Banelings are also so funny in Roach versus Roach, because oftentimes what will end up happening is you think like, oh man, it's Roaches versus Banelings. The Banelings are going to be absolutely useless. But no, what ends up happening is those Banelings actually detonate on a handful of Roaches that are super duper clumped up, like 8 or 9 of them. And what ends up happening is they actually start dealing a massive amount of damage, and they turn the tide of the battle. It's the funniest thing in the world to watch. But let's go ahead and introduce the players as we spawn up here in the top left-hand corner of the map on top of the blue Zerg player representing Team Gravity. It is Gravity's Jig, currently up 1-0.
And in the bottom right corner, again from NoDiceGaming, we do have the red Zerg player, Crowbar. And I don't know how much this has a factor on it, but I feel like sometimes in the Roach v Roach, where one player goes for Banes, you'd think, like, initially, if you don't see it a lot, you might think, like, oh, Banelings are bad versus Roaches, so I don't need to bother to split. And then that kind of mentality is what leads the Banelings to be effective. Because, yeah, I mean, on paper, Banelings shouldn't be very good versus Roach, but sometimes they're just enough to tip the balance. So I don't know, maybe it is that kind of idea of, well, they shouldn't be good, so I just won't do anything.
Yeah, to be entirely honest, more often than not, when I see the Roach Bane plays, it's usually because there are Banelings left over from like a Roach Zergling part of the game, where even if the other players didn't actually have a lot of Zerglings, oh, sorry, not Roach Zergling, Ling Bane. When you have a lot of Zerglings and Banelings out on the map, then you have a lot of those Banelings left over when the Roach transition comes out, and you say, you know what, I might as well use them, I have them, right? And they can actually still do a pretty good job, but, you know, looks like pretty safe play coming out of both these players, both these guys going for the nice old 15 pulls, and neither of them really wants to go for the hatch first, just because, you know, Jig, I think I can understand, he's a much more aggressive player sometimes, and you want to be wary of the early pulls.
Yeah, I can definitely understand the idea of not wanting to go for pool first. Just that, or not wanting to go for hatch first, especially after a game like that. But they're going to be pretty much confirming that, yeah, we basically did the exact same thing as their overlords sort of passed the hatcheries on the other sides of the map, and so basically they're very happy with their situation. They're like, good, I made the right call, you know, I'm not going to be way behind, but I'm also not necessarily going to be way ahead. So it will hopefully be coming down to execution, which is always more fun than like, oh, that was just a build order loss.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, both these players are going for relatively similar builds. So we see very, very slight deviations. Maybe like their extractor was taking one supply ahead of their opponent. But at the end of the day, it shouldn't really play that big of a difference unless there's just some kind of crazy. I always talk about this whenever I watch a ZVZ with speed and one player is like 25 gas ahead, and I'm like, they could theoretically have a speed 5 to 10 seconds ahead of their opponent. And that could come into effect if one player's speedlings are chasing down the other players like slow zerglings, and they manage to get us around just for an extra couple of seconds, and it tips the tide of the battle. I've never actually seen it happen. It never really seems to happen. So
yeah, it's like one of those things where it's theoretically possible, but not exactly realistic.
In reality, it doesn't actually play that huge of an effect. Honestly, both these players are sitting pretty gosh darn even. They're going to be playing out similar builds, and they're just going to be getting up the standard old stuff now. Do have the Baneling Nest being thrown down for Crowbar, and of course he does still have 3 guys mining that gas, so he's a little bit more concerned about the why do I keep saying Roach Zergling? The Zergling, Baneling sort of stage of ZVZ, and you can see that Baneling Nest coming out from Jig as well. Oh, repositioning it.
Yeah, he's going to be moving it over, which means it's just going to be delayed that much longer. But is that actually going to be making a difference? Throws down a Spine Crawler as well, so he's going to be just wanting that little bit of extra security. And, I mean, it seems overall they're pretty even on both drones and Zerglings, so it's not, or army supplies, so it's not like one player is going super hard into Lings and the other player is going super hard into drones. And then the start of the lair for Crowbar.
Ooh, yeah, and that's actually pretty interesting. He's going for the lair, and this might actually work out pretty well, because if you actually take a look at Jig's situation, I mean, he's throwing down the Spine Crawler, he's throwing down the Evolution Chamber, he has the Baneling Nest, like, kind of big wall going on. He's prepared for a little bit more of the defensive play while he gets up a good number of drones. It gets up to a nice, healthy place, but if he's going to be a little bit behind in the lair tech, we could see, you know, a Spire being thrown down, especially with the fact that Crowbar has 4 of these gas geysers already being taken. I am almost certain it's going to be some sort of Spire play. And when it comes to Spire play, when it comes down to a game of numbers, Cybert, it's a matter of how many Mutals do I have, how many Mutals do you have? There are nice micro tricks you can do, but oftentimes it's hard to get past that just pure statistical, I have the number advantage in Mutalisks.
Yep, and as we add on like 10 drones here for Crowbar, the lair is finished up, and there's the Spire. So indeed you are correct. Now the Roach Warren is just now finishing up in the next couple of seconds for Jig. And of course, Roach is traditionally bad versus Mutalisks, but I mean if you've got like 2 Mutalisks versus a million Roaches, you can just kill the other guy's base before the Mutas actually are able to kill off the Roaches. So we could end up seeing a situation where it's like, technically, Crowbar has the quote-unquote better army, but the superior numbers for Jig just make it more feasible. However, Jig is following it up with 9 more drones, so maybe not the case.
Yeah, this is going to be a bit of an interesting situation right now. Jig is going to have that Spire finishing up relatively soon, and as far as I'm aware, Jig doesn't really have a lot of knowledge of it. He actually does win the little Zergling fight over in the center, and he's going to be able to start sending some of those Zerglings in. He sees one of the gas geysers. Actually, has he seen the Spire? He has seen the Spire. Yeah,
he just snuck by there with his Zergling, so if he did not click on it, he really should have. But as you can see, he should be, you know, at least aware of it. Will he necessarily be able to do a lot against it? Well, we'll have to see in the next couple of seconds exactly what he decides to go for. Zergling's moving out across the map, but again, pretty nice tight wall off. The third base is a little bit exposed, and potentially those Banelings could get some pretty nice hits off.
Yeah, they could get some nice hits off, but looks like Crowbar is now moving in. He's going to try and control this, try and get those Banelings to detonate. Already gets rid of one of them. The second one looking for a good connection. He may be able to find an okay one. I think that
not too bad.
Yeah, more Zerglings streaming in though for Crowbar. I feel like he actually has enough to continue to pressure on this third.
Yeah, and actually going to be getting us around on the Queen. The Mutalisks are going to be following up after this, but they are still a little while away, so he has to kind of survive here, and actually sniping down the Spore Crawler will just make the Mutalisks a little bit more powerful.
Actually, if he kills off this Queen...
This could kind of snowball.
If he kills off this Queen, there's not going to be any anti-air against the Mutalisks that, where are those Mutalisks? There should be 9 out on the map now. They're starting to stream their way in.
Yeah, but of course, if Jig somehow missed the Spire, he'll definitely be knowing it about here. He does have a pretty nice swell of Zerglings moving out across the map, but again, is he actually going to be able to stop these Mutalisks? He's got the Spore Crawlers in position. And this third base, I mean, the Spore Crawler has been restarted, and there's 2 Queens here, a third one making its way down.
Oh! Huge Baneling hit over in the center location. A really, really nice hits for Crowbar. And he's going to be able to kill off a large number of the Zerglings that were moving their way across the map for Jig.
Yep, and again, those Zerglings can just absolutely get decimated as the entire game can shift with a single Baneling hit. Not necessarily what we're going to be seeing here, but a couple of drones could be going down at the third base for Crowbar. Jig getting some good hits, but not enough.
Yeah, another good hit coming out over there for Crowbar. There's still a handful of these Zerglings left. I mean, he could start to use some of these Mutalisks to try and clean these guys up. And actually, he brings back the remainder of his Mutalisks.
He's actually going to be getting into the main base here. Shouldn't be able to kill too many drones, but they should get a couple of kills as, I guess Jig pulls them off. But losing Overlord's never exactly fun when it... Actually,
yeah.
Okay, yeah, there we go. He's got 2 Overlords just about to finish up, so he is going to be unsupply blocked. But still, that's super annoying losing those Overlords.
Uh-oh. Getting a little bit of lag from one of our other observers over there, and... yeah, I'm gonna just go ahead and say... Curly, you're gonna have to leave, man. That's just one of the rules of observing. If you're observing and you are lagging, you gotta leave. But, you know, I really have to say, just like we can see that Crowbar right now, he's sitting up a solid 40 or so supply, like, and it just goes to show that he's just playing this out really, really well. He's in a great position. Yeah, Jig tried to do that kind of big Zergling run by, but he lost a lot of his Zerglings just to those 2 Banelings, and that hurt his ability to put on any kind of additional pressure. I mean, you saw, even after losing all those Zerglings, Jig was actually able to still try and do a little bit of damage. He was able to kill off, you know, 4 drones. He was able to put some pressure on the third. Imagine if he had another 16 to 20 Zerglings. He could have killed off a third expansion. He could have changed the entire way that this game was going and been able to stabilize. But right now, he's in a lot of trouble as all of these Mutals are now on the other side of the map for Crowbar, and they're going to be able to put on some enormous pressure on Jig.
Yep. Just kind of unfortunate timing here for Jig, and the third base is going to be assaulted. Of course, he doesn't want to necessarily fly into the Spore Crawlers if he doesn't have to. Picking off a Queen is going to be rather nice there, and the Zerglings will be able to clean up the majority of the defenses here at the third base. And Jig, I mean, he's not technically out of it just yet, as he is going to be trying to reinforce that third base to hold the line. Crowbar is going to be getting cleaned up, but 70 army supply versus, well, now like 13, but...
Yeah, and even though the Zerglings do get cleaned up, I mean, these Mutals have been able to intercept all the Zerglings that just keep trying to stream in. And look at this, his Mutals count is so ridiculous that with the Glaveworm bounces, he's able to clean up all of the Zerglings that Jig is trying to go for a counterattack with. And oh, he's actually just going to go straight into the Spore Crawler, just going to try to engage it down. And guess what? Now there's an opening for this third expansion to be picked off.
Yep, Roaches are out on the defensive end for Crowbar, so as you lose your third base, and you're streaming across Zerglings to try to deal with Roaches on the other side of the map. Not a good position to be in. Even the Evo Chamber is going to be getting picked off, canceling that +2. And I mean, the Baneling Nest is almost going to be getting cleaned up just by the splash damage from the Glaveworms.
Yeah, kind of interesting to note that Crowbar didn't have any drones at the third expansion. Kind of forces Jig to go all the way over into the main base to try and get some damage done. Yeah. He's going to be able to kill off a couple of these drones, but again, back at home, the Mutals, well, actually, the Mutals count has actually dwindled quite heavily, especially engaging into the Spore Crawlers time and time again. He keeps losing them.
Crowbar actually lost a surprising number of drones in his main base. I mean, now he's down by 11, so Jig has the...
Oh,
the Hydra's actually, whoa, catching out the Mutalisks. As they all but one go down, so I guess that's how you deal with the Mutas, is you just have them fly into a group of Hydras. Now it is still, of course, that 2 base versus 3 base, but the army supply is kind of starting to even out. It's still not a good situation for Jig, but it's kind of getting there.
This actually may be exactly what Jig needs right now. He needs more Roaches in this army composition. He has a lot of Hydras. Those are going to be great DPS, but he doesn't want to be losing these. If he can continue to get up some Roaches to tank for this, he might actually be able to stabilize and get that third back up.
I'm not actually sure why Crowbar decided to engage there, unless he just wasn't paying attention to the number of Hydralisks.
I think he just moved his Mutalisks into a location, and the Hydras were there. They were there and ready to intercept, and he just didn't notice because he still had those Zerglings back in his main base, being very annoying and trying to kill off drones. So I think he was back at home trying to micro that and didn't actually keep track of his mutals. Kind of ended up losing them there.
I actually meant the roaches in that last engagement.
Oh, the roaches. Yeah, that was...
too. It was just kind of a...
Yeah.
He had, like, reinforcements on the way, and he didn't have enough right there. But Spinecrawler's going to be going down at the front. This is a much healthier number of roaches, but at this point, Jig has been able to have the time to get up his own roaches, which can, of course, tank for the Hydralisks. Now, this third base is most likely going to be getting shut down once again.
Oh.
That one last Mutalisk is like, I can help, right?
No, not quite. As you know, as you were saying, the third expansion gets picked off once again by Crowbar, and unfortunately, Jig, I don't know if he was anticipating more units or like he just didn't want to try and take that engagement over there, but he just backed up straight to his natural expansion. Either he kind of misread the movement of Crowbar, or he just said, I can't take that engagement. Even with the Hydralist, right now the Roach count is just a little bit too high. He does have a nice little upgrade lead, despite the fact that his Evolution Chamber got picked off earlier on.
And an Infestor is going to be coming out, which would be nice for keeping the Roaches in position, but it's going to be quite a few Fungals to actually be locking down those Roaches completely. But, plus, Carapace is going to be coming up for Crowbar, so he will have that armor advantage as well.
Yep. Jig, of course, seeing, yeah, you still do have that third expansion. You're mining from there. That's something I don't have, and he's got to make something happen with these. He has the tech, he has the Hydrals, he has the Infestors, as you were saying, but is it going to be enough? He's still down a heavy amount in supply, including army supply. He's down to almost 30 right now. He's got to make this engagement just go miraculously well for him, and it's possible. The army supply he's down in, it's Roaches, and Roaches aren't exactly the most supply-efficient units.
Yeah, they're not supply efficient. The thing that I'm kind of worried about is the Remax for Crowbar, because Crowbar, his income, I mean, he hasn't been having the third base denied like he's been doing to his opponent. So if they take an engagement, and even if Jig gets the better end of the engagement, will he be able to deal with the Remax? Oh, Jig actually getting supply blocked once again for a couple of moments there. Very unfortunate for him. But yeah, can he actually deal with the Remax from Crowbar?
Well, we'll have to see. It looks like that engagement may be happening soon. The Infestors, oh, I think the Overseer actually for Crowbar just spotted those Infestors, so he's gonna, I don't know if he has to be careful not to walk into the Infestors or if he wants to go after those Infestors. The Infestors are kind of vulnerable right now.
It may actually, it looks like Jig's positioning himself on the high ground. He's going to be trying to take a fourth. Again, it's not that much further behind the fourth of his opponent, but when you consider how much mining has been done on each of the third base, there's some Fungals, some pretty nice starts to this army. Again, more Chain Fungals going to be coming out, locking down a lot of these units. Now we'll have to see if the Hydras for Jig can really get the DPS out that they need, as the Crowbar was able to build up his own forces, and the Concave from both players are sick, but the Fungals are making the difference.
He just did thousands of damage with those Infestors with just the Fungals. He just wrecked the Hydrals and the Roaches for Crowbar right there. And now he can try and push across the map. This is what he has to do. He's taking the fourth expansion. He's taking the big army lead right now. He's up a solid 30 supply now. He can try and deny this fourth expansion.
Yeah, and I mean, he's still going to be behind on those drones in comparison to Crowbar, but if he can deny the fourth base, that might actually be enough to kind of stabilize things even more. And, I mean, he will have eyes on the army, and they're seeming to be relatively even in terms of the numbers that are facing each other right now. Jig might just have to wait for the reinforcements, because he is going to be fighting uphill.
Yeah, this is going to be a very awkward engagement angle over here. It's definitely going to give Crowbar the nice concave over here as the army streams in, but is there just a little bit too much for Jig? It's looking to be close.
Yeah, the armies are definitely pretty close, but it looks like Jig may be finally overwhelming the forces. Drones getting pulled off the line, and I guess he's hoping to give away any worker lead that he may have had. This fourth hatchery is most likely doomed. And this is possibly the comeback story that Jig needed, especially considering his own fourth base is going to be set up so he can saturate that at some point in the near future.
Yeah, and honestly, Jig doesn't even need to continue to put on pressure over here. This has been a 22-minute game. He's killed off a lot of workers, even up that worker count. And the main bases for both of these players have been mined out. The natural expansions have been mined out. They are basically mining off their thirds and fourths. But the difference is, Jig actually has a third that has been mining for a lot less time, and he has a fourth expansion that's now starting to mine. Whereas Crowbar, his third expansion has actually been up almost this entire time, so he has a little bit less time on this third expansion, and he doesn't have a fourth. He's in a much worse economic position right now. So Jake can honestly, yeah, he can kind of be aggressive over here, but I'd honestly just like to see him continue just try and poke, deny the fourth, and not overcommit over here.
Actually, if he can end the game with some pretty nice fungals, really pushing his army advantage even further, and even if
that's true.
That third base,
Oh my god.
The killing blow right there, but he doesn't even want to go for the third base, and yeah, there's just something about having like 22 army supply that late in the game when you've got those many forces from your opponent jumping on you. You're like, all right, okay, you got this one, Jig. But the comeback for Jig, and I don't know if it all came down to that engagement, but those blanket fungals.
Oh, that engagement was the game changer. It was actually a really good identification of Jig saying, let's be entirely frank, he was behind by a good bit, losing that third over and over again. He got two kind of lucky breaks, all right? One of them, I will say, is actually just a little bit of a lucky break for Jig. It was a little bit miscontrolled by Crowbar, losing those Mutalisks. Sure, the Mutalisks aren't going to be super helpful in the actual engagement themselves, but it kept Jig at home, and it allowed Crowbar to get a good scout off on exactly where his opponent was. It kind of allowed him to keep him at home and get a couple of free pickoffs here and there. The second thing was actually just a really great setup by Jig. Those infestors just laying down the fungals, as you were saying, was absolutely phenomenal. That was the big game changer, because after he did that, he was able to push in, kill off the fourth expansion. And he did actually just so well in that engagement that he was able to kill off the army of Crowbar. And we were talking about the fear of the remax from Crowbar. Crowbar actually was maxed out during that engagement. But Jake took it so well and so handily that he was able to push up a ramp into a massive concave from Crowbar and still win that engagement and kill off the fourth expansion. And then was able to, use those 4 bases to build up that army one more time and go for the kill right there as he was up 70 supplies. So it did really come down to that one big engagement, a really good identification from Jig to say, you know what, I'm behind. What do I got to go for? Infestors, the energy units, the big splash damage units can really change the tide of a game.
Yeah, it definitely helped that there were a couple of delays in the move out for Crowbar, as there may have been some game-ending moments for Crowbar, but he wasn't able to fully take advantage of them, Jig buying time in a number of ways, and I don't know how many of those ways were mistakes from Crowbar versus, good decisions from Jig, as sometimes it's hard to tell exactly. But regardless, Jig bought the time that he needed, and then it was a case of like, well, Jig doesn't really have anything, and then suddenly, oh, Jig actually has a relatively similar number of roaches and hydras, and while he may be down in army supply, he made up for it with those infestors. So buying time, maybe not, the entire story of the game, but it definitely is a part of that story. And Jig, that's a 2-0 for him, so he's got a nice start for Team Gravity. They're going to be happy with leading 2-0 in this best of 7.
Yeah, it's actually really interesting that that's the case right now, because honestly, if you actually look at the standings for the SC2 Improved Team League, Team Gravity is actually, though, in a sense, like the less favorite player. I should say that NoDiceGaming is the favorite right now. They're sitting 4-1 right now in the league. They're sitting at actually 2nd place. Team Gravity not too far behind. They're sitting in 3rd place, but they're sitting at 2-2. So it's really cool. Team Gravity really showing that, you know what, we may be below you, NoDiceGaming, in the standings right now, but we can still whoop your butt. That's what Team Gravity's saying. NoDiceGaming has to come up with some kind of answer to Jig, because I think Jig is going to be one of the really, really strong players on Team Gravity that they have to deal with. After that, that's not to say that Team Gravity doesn't still have some strong players left over, but I feel like it's going to be a nice ease of mind to say, like, okay, Jig's out of the way, let's see who else they have now.
Yeah, exactly. And again, with those map scores, if Team Gravity is able to take like a 4-0 or a 4-1 in this, that could really even the scores up and kind of shake NoDiceGaming from their position in the team league, as I totally know all of this information offhand, not looking it up on Wikipedia.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that would actually be really, really cool. Oh my god, yeah.
Like, that could seriously change up the team league.
Yeah, so 4-0 would actually bring NoDiceGaming from 11 points right now down to 7 points, and that would put Team Gravity, they would get 4 points. They would actually, they would take 2nd place. It'd be 8 points to 7 points.
Would they actually be in 2nd place? Because then there would be 3-2 versus 4-2. in terms of overall series. I'm not exactly sure how the league works.
No, I think it would be 3. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, that's actually a good question.
I think it's series score and then map score. But at any rate, I think we're going to be jumping into this game, and it looks like Cham is going to be the choice. So again, another ZVZ going to be heading our way, and NoDiceGaming, they're asking the question of what do you do about Jig? We'll have to see if Cham is the answer.
Well, apparently the answer is send out another Zerg player who also likes to be aggressive. Cham, honestly, I am a big Cham fan over here. He's a really cool Mexican Zerg player who, quite honestly, also has that sort of aggressive style and is not afraid to kind of throw out early game aggression and cheese. And he has some pretty good control as well. So, you know what? I guess NoDiceGaming is saying ZVZ, maybe they saw some sort of weaknesses in Jig's early game control. I mean, we did actually end up seeing some moments, especially on that game, where the Banelings were actually massacring Jig's Zergling count, right? Because that was one of the big turnaround points. Because if Jig was able to get across the map with those Zerglings that he was streaming across while Mutal surpassing his base, he could have killed off the third. He actually could have been in a much better position and not have to have a comeback. So maybe that's an identification saying, you know what, Cham, go for some early game aggression and really make this work.
Just 6 pull. Just go for it. And they're like, Banelings did well. So, build no Banelings and just 6 pull. He's like, I don't know if I follow your logic here.
You know,
I'd actually be kind of curious to get an inside look of like what they were actually, because I'm assuming they've got like a group Skype chat and they're like, all right, is it just one guy saying, you go, or is there like intense discussion where they're like, look, Jig did this, he went for this build order, here's his gas timing, let's hit him with overgrowth.
The caster in me, like the spectator in me, wants to say, you know what, these guys are probably like sitting there, they're all like, actually not even just like in a Skype chat, they're probably in some sort of like voice speak, either a Skype call or something like that. And you know what, they're highly discussing, they're being like, okay, at the 7-minute mark, it looked like there was this vulnerable timing that we could really push and abuse and, you know, punish him for. But in reality, from my experience, whenever I talk to these players and I'm just like, yeah, how does that kind of stuff go? They're like, oh, you know, it's just kind of like the manager says, like, does anybody want to play? I'm like, yeah, sure, well, I'll play. Like, half the time, that's kind of what it's like. But, you know, sometimes I think there are some of those hardworking players that do kind of put their voice out and say, you know what, I think I want to play because I have this sort of thing that I feel like I can abuse. I watched that last game, and I thought, you know what? I feel like I can beat this player. I feel like that, you know what, this player takes too many risks over here. I can try and abuse that. So they might not outstate it so like vocally and be like in the Skype chat, oh yeah, I have this exact perfect build. It's this 4-minute and 37-second timing push. He's just gonna be totally unprepared for it. He's gonna be like 7 seconds too delayed to have those Banelings ready and in position. Like, it's not exactly like that. I want to
believe.
Oh my god, I
want to believe in the dream that.
There's got to be a player, somebody out there, like, I don't know if it's TLO or somebody who does that sort of advanced level of preparation, but let's go ahead and jump in and introduce the players as we spawn. Down here in the bottom left-hand corner, on top of the red Zerg player, currently up 2-0, as I have the scores reversed right now. There we go. Currently up 2-0 in this best of 7 series, this team league, and carrying his team right now, it is Team Gravity's Jig.
And in the top right side, the man who needs to even things up, the man who is down 0-2 for his team. Can he bring it back for NoDiceGaming in this ZVZ? It's Cham. I just felt like hamming things up for no reason.
It sounded good, man, and oh man, Cybert, I've been saying it for a while. We didn't really get to see it though. Jig went for the 3 hatch before pool in game number 1. He plays it out nice and safe and standard in game number 2 for the most part. Game number 3, this is where he starts to toss in his shenanigans. He's going for the 10 pool. He's going for the extractor. Is this an extractor? I don't think this is an extractor trick, but there's no drone being produced or anything. And he didn't cancel the extractor, so this is actually going to be a speedling all in.
Yeah, I wonder if this is the point where you mentioned before, which I don't know how many people saw this, but you mentioned before we actually jumped into game number 1, Jig was saying that he had to go. So maybe he's like, either I get a fast win and we go up 3-0, or I just lose here and then I can go do whatever it is that I need to do. So, I mean, either way, this game likely will not be lasting very long. There's the Baneling Nest.
All right, so it looks like
And-
it's not just going to be a pure speedling all-in. We are going to be seeing Banelings coming out of this, so he's probably not going to actually want to use any of that early gas on the speed, I think. At least from my experience of seeing this. It's really hard to afford both the Banelings and the speed, and also have enough drones actually mining to get out Zerglings. Like, it becomes a little bit too crazy and a little bit too difficult.
Yeah, the Speedlings were, or not the Speedlings, the Zerglings were just spotted. At least they maybe were spotted. If he hit that spacebar, then he probably did see them. So Cham may know that this is coming, and technically he does indeed have that spawning pool up. But will he be actually able to hold this off?
Oh, he definitely knows now.
Are morphing. Yeah, he's like, all right, it's pretty obvious exactly what you're doing. Is forced to cancel those just to get...
Oh my god!
Actually...
What?
That was just enough, because he morphed like half, or he started morphing half of his Zerglings or so, and then that allowed the Zergling numbers to actually be in the favor of Cham. He's got to surround on one of the Banelings. He needs to actually split off to deal with the Zerglings so he doesn't lose.
GG! Oh my god! Cham with some phenomenal micro over there. Manages to hold on. That was actually... Okay, here's the thing. We were talking, the Banelings were morphing in. That allowed Cham to get in 1 or 2 extra shots on some of those Zerglings of Jig. But Cham had less Zerglings there. He actually had like 1 or 2 less Zerglings, and he still managed to come out 1 Zergling on top. And if you're going for the kind of early rush build, and you don't have, the opportunity to get up any Banelings for this Baneling nest you invested in, these gas geyser that you went ahead and got, and you're down in Zerglings, you can't actually make that happen. You can't make it work. You're also down a hatchery. Your opponent's going to have better production. He's going to be able to get out 2 queens. What do you do at that point? So I don't really blame Jake for, kind of GGing or tapping out at that point, but some great control out of Cham in that.
Yeah, he delayed basically everything so much, and he was in a position where it's like, your opponent has his natural on the way. If you don't do some pretty serious damage at that point, well, you're just not in a very happy place. And with that, it is 2-1 as NoDiceGaming is starting to fight back. And of course, it's still going to be an uphill battle. But Cham does have a little bit of time to rest easy after that intense game and just sort of sit back, which I guess it wasn't too intense because it wasn't very long. But, I mean, he is going to be able to sit back a little bit and just be like, hey, I won 1 game, so I have that with me. It's not like I just lost.
Yeah, I think that, you know what? Nobody can really say, like, Team Gravity's Jig didn't really do his job. His job was to try and get as many wins as possible, and he already got 2 wins. He forced out Cham now to come out for NoDiceGaming, who, again, is a very, very strong player for NoDiceGaming, but he also took out 2 fairly strong players as well. So, Jig has done his job. He can go do whatever the heck he needs to do, I'm sure he'll get the results and all that kind of stuff from his teammates a little bit later on. But now NoDiceGaming, I mean, they finally have got themselves on the scoreboard 2-1, have still a decent ways that they have to come back. They have to win 3 more games, and they only have 2 players left over. So it's going to be a rough road for NoDiceGaming because Team Gravity, again, does still have some pretty strong players left over. But again, NoDiceGaming can breathe that sigh of relief. Jig has been taken care of. That's 1 really strong player down.
Indeed. Now, of course, as you mentioned a little while ago, there's still plenty of options for Team Gravity. It's not like they've got one and done. I don't know if Blast is actually here currently, but we could end up seeing Blast come out. We could also see Demo. I believe he did pretty well.
Demo would actually be a great choice, I think, because here's the thing.
Owed Integrity Gaming. So.
Demo is a monster, okay? This guy, like this Terran player, is so strong, and honestly, he has some crazy good micro and macro in the late game. So, like, here's the thing. I love Cham. Don't get me wrong. I'm a big Cham fan. But he really does do a lot better in the early game, I feel. Like I've always generally seen him feel much more comfortable and at home in that kind of early game aggression kind of stuff. And I feel like against a player like Demo, he might have a little bit more trouble if Demo can bring it to that later stage of the game. So
like
I
the
think
parade push sort of Terran move out.
Yeah, I would love to see Demo actually come out. I think that would be a great choice from Team Gravity. Hopefully they'll pick the player before actually the delay catches up and they're just like, well, Fear Dragon, that was a good idea. We'll send out Demo. Nah, I
They're
hope
totally like, we're just going to delay and find out what Fear Dragon thinks.
Oh my god, no, I'm not actually that smart. Like, we talk about this, we like speculate, but nobody knows the teams better than their own players and of course their own teams. Like and we were kind of talking a little bit about this before as well, about how things really go down and how they really end up picking players oftentimes. It's people will oftentimes just kind of volunteer themselves and say that they feel comfortable, and the players who volunteer, they know themselves and they know the situation better than anybody else. So I would be very, very surprised if they ever even wanted to hear my thoughts on this stuff. In fact, I'd probably confuse them. I'd probably actually get them to pick the wrong player.
Just your luck. It would be the one time that a team is like, all right, we're going to listen to Fear Dragon. And then they'd just be like,
They get
yeah,
unbelievably
Bronze
hard
League
countered.
player.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I saw that Bronze League guy, man, which I'm not saying any of the people are Bronze League, but just
You
as
know,
an
I really think Beast should go out. Like, the manager for Team Gravity. Oh, man, no. That would... Beast, I love you, man, but 2-Raxing can't solve every problem.
Yes, it can.
Maybe it can. Have you been in the Silver League ladder, man? 2-Raxing is phenomenal.
Players don't even have to 2-Rax me. They could just play standard. And it's just, that's it.
They actually go for the proxy 1-Rax. They're just floating an extra 150 minerals, like, for the rest of the game. It's just like, no, 1-Rax is enough for
they
Cyber.
don't actually build any units. They just float the barracks over my base, and I'm like, ah, GG, I'm done.
The 2-Raxes, you just float 2 barracks over your opponent. It's just like, I could have killed you, but I don't have to. And you're like, you're right, I'm inferior, just tap out now.
Or like you land them at the top of the ramp and like block them in, and they're just like, but you don't ever build anything with the 2-Rax, and they're just like,
oh my god. That makes me think of like sick 2v2 strategies where a Terran player goes to the 2-Rax and the Protoss player goes for like a cannon wall-in, but the Terran player actually just like plants down the barracks at the ramps to make it more difficult for the Zerg player to actually be able... Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So the Protoss player like does a full wall off with a pylon in conjunction with the barracks. And then puts a cannon on the low ground to wall in like Zerg players. So if you're up against like 2 Zergs, you wall them in with the cannon barracks wall off, and you get the Marines to pop out on the correct side. Like that's some scary ZVs, or like I guess PTVZZ 2v2 strats. I want to try this out, man.
That's the stuff that like nightmares are made out of. But I feel like you would still, for it to actually work, you would have to be like, 2 higher level players versus 2 lower level players. But that would be pretty hilarious, because I mean, sometimes in placement matches, I know players who are really good when they're doing their placement matches. They'll just do like derpy things.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Fun because I'm going to win anyways. Or like if they get placed into a weird league, they're like, I'm not gonna go super try hard on this. So, I mean, yeah, maybe it could be one of those things to try out. Just like, what is the worst way to still win a game? You
know, that reminds me, there was actually a really long time, this is like back in Wings of Liberty, I think, but there was this time that MC from, formerly of OGS, I think he was on OGS at the time, maybe he was on SK, I can't even keep track of what team he's on these days, but MC was streaming, and he was laddering on EU. He was saying, you know what, I'm going to get a Grandmaster on EU, and I'm starting a new account. So obviously he's getting matched up against these poor, like, Silver League, Gold League, Platinum, Diamond, and Master League players. And I think he is up against this Platinum League player, right? And what he does actually, and by the way, guys, we're just waiting for Team Gravity to send out their next player.
No, actually, the game is running.
The game is running? We're just deciding that this is more interesting.
We're like, we're going to tell stories. Yeah. Actually, Team... NoDiceGaming just had a sick comeback. It was great.
Yeah, we just saw another... We actually just saw another Speedling All-In. It actually worked in favor of Chanis. No, but what ended up happening was actually MC is up against this poor Protoss player.
Merry-Go-Round. I'll let you finish your story later, but...
Yeah, we are going to be seeing the next map and player pick, and oh my god. Cyber, you're a genius, I'm a genius. We're so smart. It looks like Team Gravity actually did wait for the stream to catch up and listen to our advice, because it is going to be Team Gravity's demo coming out in this game, and the map is going to be Merry-Go-Round.
Alright, finish your story. Quick.
Alright, so MC was playing against this poor Platinum League player, and the general idea was that MC decided, you know what, I could kill you right now, but no, let's make this fun. So he types into the chat, level 1, and then he moves 1 Zealot into his opponent's base. And the Platinum League player is just like, oh, what the hell? Like, so he kills off the free Zealot. It's like the 8 and 10 minute mark or something. So I was like, oh, no big problem. And he says level 2. and then he sends in like a stalker into his opponent's base, and then he keeps going with this. It says level 3, sends in like 2 stalkers, and eventually I think he gets to like level 7 or level 8, and there's like 8 stalkers and like 4 zealots or something. He just kills off the other guy. It's just like, this poor guy is just getting like toyed around with so hard. MC's sitting there on like 4 or 5 bases. It's like the 12-minute mark. Yeah, I'm just trying to find, of course, oh right, it's not Jig. I'm inviting Cham into the game. There we go.
Jig is no more.
Yeah, Jig did get taken out.
Is there revives?
I don't think there are.
I'm assuming
revivals.
even if there is, like, Jig isn't coming back because he's probably physically gone. But I was just like, you know, the dream is alive. I don't know what dream we're talking about, but it's alive.
The dream is alive. I think the dream... What was the dream? The dream is actually the Protoss Terran 2v2, like, barracks cannon wall off. That's the dream, man. That's
what we're gonna do. That's what we're gonna do after this.
Actually, I would love... I know this is a TVZ, so we're not gonna see it, but I would love to see some cannon shenanigans. I'm just feeling cannon-y today, man.
Oh, I was really hoping... So, I was really hoping it was the same guy who lagged out in the second game, who was jumping into the lobby. Because it's like, hey, can we add another observer to the game? Sure, go ahead. Not a big deal, right? Oh, unless they lag out.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I'm not gonna fault him too much or yell at him too much, because
I'm assuming it wasn't intentional.
I'm assuming he didn't just like it was like, oh man, I'm gonna join this game and just like pull my plug Ethernet cable.
She's like, you're just
that was a weird form of like trolling. Like you didn't even do it during an main engagement or anything. Like it didn't affect the game. But it was good. Like he did end up leaving immediately, so no big trouble or concern at all. We're gonna be jumping into the next game though. This is going to be game number 4 now, I believe, as NoDiceGaming down 1 and 2, but starting to make that comeback, starting to force out new players from Team Gravity.
Yep, it's definitely not going to be the all-kill no matter which one of these teams end up taking it. And of course, as casters, we're always like, yeah, we want to see the 4-3. We want to see the most interesting storyline possible. And the players and the teams are just like, no, 4-0. 4-0 for us. That's what we want. Shut up, casters. Yeah. No 4-3. I mean,
honestly, like, it's actually really important. I mean, we're kind of joking around about this, but every map that you take and every map that you don't lose is actually so important because it adds up to your actual point values for the league. So the difference between a 4-0 and like a 4-3, it's a huge difference. You're actually losing out on so many possible points you could have been getting. You could actually skyrocket yourself over to the front of the league if you're able to get those 4-0 victories. But, you know, it's not going to be very easy, and we're obviously seeing the NoDiceGaming putting up a really good fight. We're going to see if they're going to be able to continue on and take the series, or if they're going to have a little bit more difficulty against this next player. As we jump in and spawn up here in the top right corner of the map, merry-go-round on top of the blue Zerg player representing NoDiceGaming. It is Cham.
Unfortunately, sending his overload in the wrong way. I always like to point that out because it's so annoying. But in the top left side, the man for Team Gravity, the Terran, this is Demo. Which I'm just assuming I'm pronouncing correctly, but I mean, it seems like D-E-E-M-O would be Demo, but turns out it's actually like...
It's D-M-O.
Yeah, it's like...
And D-M-O is now starting his supply depot.
D-M-0 is actually what it is.
Oh, that's actually a lowercase 0. Good catch there, Cyber.
You could have a lowercase 0.
You've never seen a lowercase 0?
It's not an O, it's a lowercase 0.
Yeah, just type in 0 with caps lock on, man.
Oh, okay. I'll do that.
But Demo going to be going for a pretty standard opening over here. Getting that gas geyser, getting the barracks down, and likely going to be some sort of Reaper expansion. Nothing too surprising. And Cham, he's saying, okay, yeah, nothing too crazy. I don't have to be too concerned. He actually sent out the drone scout as well. So you were talking about how the Overlord actually ended up scouting the wrong position. Well, Cham's actually accounted for that. He says 3-player map. If I send out my drone, I'm going to scout you on time for any kind of cheesy shenanigans.
Yep, which, I mean, seeing the barracks at the front, seeing the gas, he's going to be like, okay, I'm not getting proxy 2 racks, which, regardless of it being merry-go-round...
Is his beast actually playing on Demo's account? We now know the answer is no.
It's always good to know that. But
Yeah.
Reaper is on the way, which, I mean, if he went for gas and he didn't get the Reaper, I would be like, you want, mate?
Yeah, there are some factory builds you can go for, but I mean, generally when you try and do that kind of stuff, you want to get the gas geyser before you even start the barracks, which we didn't really end up seeing. So yeah, Reaper does make sense, and it should be able to try and at least poke and prod at Cham, considering he did go for the hatch first.
Yep, hatch first, going to be delaying that spawning pool by a fair bit at any rate. And there's going to be the natural expansion on the way for Demo.
And here's the thing, like, you can get some nice damage done just because your opponent generally, if they go for the hatchery first, they don't immediately have those Zerglings out, or they don't immediately have the Queen out. So he's going to have this nice little 15 to 20 second window where he can poke in and try and get some damage done. If nothing else, he should be able to kill off a couple of these Zerglings, and with some nice micro, he's going to try and target fire down. Well, yeah, just going to go after the Zerglings, and that's actually a lot of Zerglings. 8 Zerglings is a... sorry, I'm actually terrible at counting. 6 Zerglings. Right? Yeah, 6 Zerglings.
Yeah, it's 6, but, I mean, it is some nice juking going on here, and it's going to be drones following it up, so these Zerglings are going to be the only thing that he's getting, and really the only thing that he needs, but yeah, he needs to make sure that he doesn't lose this Reaper too early, and, well, too easily, rather, and that he does indeed get the full scout off, that he knows exactly what his opponent is doing, because currently, there's no gases taken, which is a fair bit different than if he was, you know, going to take multiple gases. And we do have a couple of Marines coming out, so it's just this one Reaper all by his lonesome. He's going to have to heal up, and he doesn't have any Reaper buddies to help him out, but the factory is getting completed just now, and there's the liftoff. So it is potentially going to be some Hellions out onto the map.
No, it's going to be double siege tanks. He's actually going to go into the campaign and build a reactor tech lab.
Oh, those are so much fun.
That's gonna be a Legacy of the Void, man. They're gonna be like, you know, we realized that Terrans wanted to be able to build more siege tanks in ZVT, but we weren't really seeing it, so we decided to make reactor tech labs so that you could build 2 siege tanks at a time at the 6-minute mark.
No, man, I don't even care about that. I just want, like, 2 racks and then quad Marauder production. That's what I want.
Oh, God. Oh, that is disgusting, man, as a Protoss player.
Oh, that would be so great. But anyways, the Hellions are going to be on the way, which, I mean, again, nothing like too crazy coming out. 4 Hellions with 1 Reaper isn't the craziest thing that we have seen, and there's going to be the medevac, which means we may end up seeing some elevatoring, if that's even the correct, like, conjugation of it. But
I think that's the best conjugation I've heard all day, Cybert, and it's going to make sense because there are 2 Widow Mines also now being produced for Demo, so he's going to be able to do a nice little drop over there, and as you were saying, of course, elevatoring the Hellions up also going to potentially be a good play. I honestly wouldn't even be too surprised right now, though, if he just leaves his units. He wants to deny this creep spread from getting out too far, and also deny the drone from ever getting down to the 3rd expansion.
Yeah, as long as he can delay that 3rd expansion. I mean, Roaches are out on the field, so that means he can start to break it, but we do have a Banshee on the way, which, I mean, again, Banshee's kind of like in the whatever King Sejong game was, whatever number that was, where it's like, yeah, mutas technically aren't being countered by the army, but, you know, Banshees don't have that high damage output versus Roaches, so we'll have to see.
You know, it's interesting, though. We still have Cham on a relatively low drone count. I mean, 43 drones, and there are some big Roach pushes that you can do as a Zerg player against a Terran, especially the Roach 1-1 timing push that has just been causing so much trouble. I mean, if you ever want to talk to somebody who hates Roaches, talk to Nathanius.
In the main base of Cham, though, we do have the Widow Mines going to be getting deployed, at least one of them. There's the second one. It does indeed burrow. They both burrow right next to each other. Actually going to be going for the lava. And, all right, so that was interesting.
Yeah, a bit of team attack going on over there. Actually ends up, the Widow Mine actually hits most of his own Marines and kills off most of the drop, honestly. Has to back out of there.
Is it just me, or is this creep spread actually kind of sick for Cham?
This is insane. Not in the sense that, oh my god, at the 9-minute mark he's getting out of his base, but it's the fact that he was contained in for such a long time by those Hellions and those Reapers on this map. It's kind of annoying to try and deal with that. And now he's starting to just get it out in every single direction. Even with this many Hellions, I feel like Demo's gonna have a hard time shutting down this creep spread, but Hellions now moving their way into the natural expansion. There's nothing here to defend.
Yeah, that 1 queen isn't quite going to be enough. The drones are not pulled off the line, and they finally do eventually get but dead drones, and at this point, the worker difference is actually kind of silly.
Oh my god, 28 drones have been killed off so far. The Hellions are now finally starting to get cleaned up. There's still one Hellion left over going after those drones that are lining up. He gets one last drone.
Oh my!
And the Banshee was actually harassing in the midst of all this as well. It's still, well actually, I think it may have died. Did it die?
Wait,
no, it's still alive.
No, but the Widow Mine at the natural has 16 kills, or not the natural, the third expansion has 16 kills.
Oh my god, did it catch all the transferring drones?
I think so.
Oh
I completely missed that. I think he timed it either that or when he dropped it into the main base. That was like the most deceptive Widow Mine drop where it looked like it didn't actually kill very much, but it actually killed everything. But yeesh, that was yeah, between that and the Hellions. I mean, he's been able to re-macro up those drones, but he just dumped a lot of larva into getting back up to where he was with that drone count.
Yeah, definitely. And here's the big issue is exactly what you're saying. It's, yeah, they have even worker counts, but Cham really needs to have been able to, you know, start teching up right now. He needs to not have to produce a bunch of units because right now we have Demo with more and more units. I mean, all of his production is going to start kicking in. He's going to have a big scary army again in the near future. He also has that third expansion up now. And he's going to be able to start mining from that very, very soon, as soon as this Overlord creep actually starts getting eventually cleaned up and starts proceeding. But, god, Cham he doesn't want to have to be droning up again right now, or producing units right now.
I do like that Cham did go for the Overlord creep on both of the third base locations, so it's like, oh, you want to take the regular third? Well, you can't do that unless you clean up the creep, and that's just, again, it's just annoying, but we do have a couple more barracks going to be added on with those reactors, and lots of Marines, and of course, Biomine is a composition that is not uncommon at all versus third. And
siege tanks.
Jeez. Banshee's starting to get a little bit of creep cleanup here as the Queens are brought off the line to defend it. And one thing that I would like to see is maybe just some sort of go in and see exactly what the composition is, because knowing that there's this many Banelings just means, okay, I have to mentally prepare myself to make sure that my splits are out of this world, or else I'm just going to die. So Demo might want to go ahead and swing in at some point just to see exactly what he's got it.
You know, I actually really like the fact that he's already kind of getting up some of these siege tanks. The siege tanks are actually a great unit choice against the fact that there's a lot of roaches out as well, and that's something you do have to consider. It's not just the standard Ling, Baneling with Mutalisk being added on, but Cham, he's going to be coming in with an absurd number of units, because again, he actually never really re-droned back up. He's actually just still sitting on those 54 drones. He's going to have an absurd number of units. Widowmine's getting some interesting hits off. He killed off a couple of those Zerglings, but the Banelings get in on top of all the SCVs.
Yep, and now the siege tanks are completely exposed to the roaches, and the fantastic thing about siege tanks is that when they're not completely getting destroyed, they're great, and the Banelings rolling on in, and the Baneling speed does finish and gets some really nice shots off.
Oh my god, those final Baneling hits just absolutely murdered so many of those Marines for Demo. Demo gonna have to force lift off on this third expansion over here. He's gonna try and continue to rally out some of these units, especially with the Banshees back at home. He should be able to push this force back, but he ended up losing a lot of SCVs at that third. 21 SCVs went down.
Yeah, so I mean, originally the SCV kills versus drone kills was fantastic for Demo, but I mean, now he's dropped behind in that worker supply. He was forced to lift off his third, which now he's dropped a bunch of mules, but the fourth base is being established for Cham. He's going to be getting, of course, up that 4-base economy, which I guess once this main mine's out in a couple of minutes, it'll be back to the 3-base economy, but he's going to be ahead in that remax of his opponent. Well, I guess it's not a remax, but in the reinforcements.
Yeah, I'm trying to decide whether or not I feel like Cham is in a really good situation now. He again has another big army, but he's not really teching up. He's getting up 2-2 upgrades, but he's going back in with these roaches and banelings. He has to make some more damage happen because, again, he's sacrificing his ability to tech up over here, killing off some more of these SCVs. That's going to be a really nice win.
Yeah, I mean, he can't really do too much about the Banshees, but again, the Banshees don't have the super crazy damage output to deal with this many roaches. We do have a drop on the right side going to be pulling off that 4th base, so all of that talk I did earlier about how important the 4th base was, never mind. Just forget it all.
Well, no, I think I agree. The 4th expansion, definitely something that Cham wants to get up as soon as possible. But also, Cham, again, like, he doesn't really have an amazing economy. He never really droned back up. He never really got up a Spire, or he hasn't really gotten up a Hydralistan or Infestation Pit. He's just sitting around on Roach, Hydra Baneling. And that's great, but this is where it becomes problematic when you have a player like Demo who's actually just insane with drop harassment. He's finally been given some breathing room, okay? He has finally been able to actually start dropping. And when you don't have any beetles, you don't have any anti-air besides just pure queens, this is where you can start to take damage. This is where you have trouble getting up that 4th expansion.
Yep, we do have potentially another big attack going to be coming in. Now, there is 8 Marines on the right side of this map. They are going to be picking off a queen and then potentially going for the drone line at the 3rd base. And actually, they're going to be pulling the entire army back. So that actually delayed the attack by a significant amount. And look at that, 6 of the Marines getting away. And considering how far the army got pulled back,
I mean, that was more than worth it. Actually, in fact, again, there's no anti-air, so now he just kind of tries to drop some of those Marines on the Banelings, try and trade them out. 1 Baneling for 1 Marine. You'll take that trade any day as a Terran player.
Yep. And again, Tank's still never getting really up to that healthy number that he would like to have. He doesn't really have a lot of hard-hitting units. But the Banshee, it's so cute.
Banshee's just picking off all the Banelings. He's killing off all the Banelings. There's only 4 or 5 Banelings left on the top side. More Banelings coming in on the bottom side, though.
Yep, and now all of the workers and the mules going to be getting pretty much annihilated by just the fact that Demo doesn't have anything to really stop this attack. Should be raising the depots momentarily here just to keep everything out of his base. And again, we'll have to see if any sort of drop harassment on the back end of this is actually going to make anything happen for Demo. But for now, Cham is crashing through the front door, going to be just absolutely blasting it down. The Roaches should be getting on top of that tank and going for the kill.
Yeah, the drop of the natural expansion is be able to clean up a large number of the units over there. There's no mining going on over there, but at the same time, these roaches, they're doing damage, but they're going to eventually get cleaned up. The problem is going to be the big rallying of more and more of these Zerglings. Will Demo actually be able to stabilize? He's doing a lot of damage with these drops, so I feel like if he can stabilize, he's going to be in a good position.
Yeah, actually, these drops have gone completely unanswered, and even the reinforcements that are popping off of these larvae are just simply not enough. Both of these players in a very rough situation as, you know, supplies are dropping. Their mining is not where they want it to be, and you mentioned it, there's no anti-air. These Banshees going absolutely to town on the Roaches, while the Marines, on the other hand, are actually dealing with a lot of the drones, a lot of the reinforcements, without a huge amount of retribution.
And look at this. As soon as the Roaches start to get into a decent number for Cham, Demo just picks up his Marines and he says, you know what, that's fine. I'll just go somewhere else and drop over there. Because what do you have for anti-air? You have a queen. There is a queen out on the map right now. It's sitting somewhere between the 3rd expansion and the natural expansion. He's getting out 3 more queens, but oh god, he needs some sort of tech to deal with these drops. These are actually the thing that are keeping Demo in the game right now.
It looks like finally all of the Marines did get cleaned up, but if you take a look at the income tab, for quite a while there, Demo was sitting at, you know, like 1,400, 1,500, and then Cham was at 300. Now, he started to work back up to that 1,000 income mark, or 1,000 minerals per minute mark, but that's after getting the drones back to work. And Demo, with those mules, he's still climbing further and further ahead. Might actually get a couple more drones here at the 4th base. He's going to be forced to pick up, but yeah, he cleans off some more drones, and now it's like, well, you were going to have 6 drones at that expansion. Now you've got 2. Again, the income. God. Oh, Baneling. Yeah, he's trying to make something happen with these single Banelings, but.
Yeah, I think that's actually just a little bit of miscontrol. The Banelings coming in before the Zerglings did, but god, Demo is being so damn effective with these drops. And
check out the main base for Demo.
A lot of idle SCVs, a little bit unfortunate, but I mean, to be entirely honest, I'd be a little bit scared to send my SCVs down to the 3rd expansion right now anyways.
Yeah, I mean, the income is definitely nice to have. Also, at some point, he is going to be needing a 4th base, which is one thing that Demo has been really slow at expanding for pretty much the majority of this game. And you gotta hand it to Cham. His creep spread is not maybe the most insane thing ever, but it's certainly good.
It's pretty damn good. It might be a little bit deceptive because he's not actually at his opponent's base, but oh, the Baneling's not coming into the 3rd expansion. They get some actually, they don't really get the greatest hits off over there whatsoever. Demo pulling his SCVs.
They were starting to get some pretty nice hits working away at those SCVs, but it looks like the majority of the SCVs and the mules did escape. Plus, of course, there's that triple orbital, which you always have to account for. +3 armor is on the way. The scans coming down to push back that creep, and we do have, looks like, 2 medevacs full of Marines on the right side going to be potentially getting cleaned up here. The medevacs
get back to the medevacs!
Yeah, load up and get out of there.
This does give the main army an opportunity to start, you know, getting on creep and start clearing stuff up, but Demo losing track of it for a second. Not actually scanning any of those creep tumors. Needs to start getting on top of that, but again, he still has the double medevacs available. Lost a handful of those Marines, but not all of them. Now we're going to see the big engagement over here in the center, and again, Cybert, there's no anti-air. He just lifts up and runs. That's it. That's all he has to do every single time. There has to be an answer from Cham. Cham needs to get up some kind of tech.
No, he's getting up 34 Zerglings. That's going to be really good at dealing with the Banshee. I would actually love to see the Banshee just come over here and start picking off the Banelings like we saw earlier. That
Seriously.
would just be so great.
The Banshee's up to like 24 kills right now. Yeah, 24 kills. Half of those are Banelings, by the way. Like, those are expensive unit kills, not just like pure Zerglings and everything. Honestly,
in the middle.
Well,
all right, there's no engagement happening, but in the main base, again, it's like those 8 Marine or 10 Marine drops where it's not necessarily a huge Doom drop end the game, but it's, hey, you know, you want to engage my army in the middle of the map? Well, you're going to be losing drones on the back end of this, and hey, it's almost like Demo picked up all of his units and just escaped. Again.
Oh, man. Cybert, normally as a commentator, I know these players. They are fantastic. They work so hard. They practice so hard. But I'm really questioning Cham's decision not to get up any of those kind of anti-air units. Finally, he has the infestation, but he's getting pathogen glands. This is something I feel like he needed to have done a long time ago. Yeah, the Banelings, they're great when you can get the hits off like he just did at that drop in the main base, but you need to get those hits off much earlier. I honestly feel like he was in a much better position earlier on in the game. He was getting so much good damage done.
Yeah.
But these drops, they've allowed him to, allowed his opponent to crawl back in.
Oh man, that instant 4th base, 26 out of 24 saturation. In the middle of the map though, again, a huge surround coming in for Cham. But everything escapes. Time and time again, now those 4 infestors, as you mentioned, they're on the way. And of course, pathogen glands will be done well enough in time for those infestors to pop out with that energy. And this army, once it actually gets an engagement, it's going to be terrifying. But again, you talked about Cham having the advantage earlier on in the game. I feel that was important. Banelings rolling into the 3rd base location. Will they get the hits that they need? Nope, not really.
And Command Center will have to be repaired up just a tad bit, but honestly not the biggest deal. Drop gets cleaned up over here on the other side of the map.
All right.
Medevac a little bit late on picking units up, but this is what Cham needs to do.
Yeah, Cham actually starting to make some headway. Now, the tanks could, of course, get some fantastic shots off, but if they get surrounded when they're unsieged, that's, again, another totally different story. And, I mean, Cham is behind in the army supply. He still can get a dream engagement, but as you talked about earlier, he had that advantage of slipping away.
That goddamn Banshee, Cybert. That goddamn Banshee.
27
the infestors are coming. They're gonna go for the fungal, but no, the army's there to back him up.
Yep, and he scans, so he does definitely know, hey, there's infestors out on the map. Maybe he's going to be going for ghosts to try to counter that, or maybe he's just going to be looking for a straight-up army engagement, as siege tanks are pretty darn good.
All right, here should come the Wait, where are the The siege tanks are siege up on the low ground. He can't get the infestors close enough to fungal growth the Banshee. It's gonna survive.
Yep. And he's got a pretty nice surround here with the siege tanks, but Cham closing in from pretty much every angle. The Banglings, are they actually going to be getting the connections that they need? I mean, it may
it's
not
hard
even
to
matter.
say. The fungal growths are pretty good, but the reinforcements coming over here for Demo, he pushes his army back. There's still a handful of those infestors left over. Cham did end up losing a lot of, just one of them. But here's the problem, Demo maintains that position right by that expansion. Now he goes for the drop over in the main, into this base once again. Any units that get too close, they get hit by that siege tank.
Yep. Really going to be abusing the positioning of this base, and the longer that Demo holds out here, I mean, he's getting further and further ahead in upgrade. He's streaming more and more units, and the Bangling is going to be rolling in. Finally, the Fungal Growth locking a lot of these units into position. I don't know if that was the dream engagement that he needed, as there's more tanks, more Marauders, more Marines streaming across the map for Demo.
Yeah, the expansion does end up going down to that drop, that elevator play up into that base, but there is actually finally an expansion mining over here for Cham down in the bottom right-hand corner. That's going to actually be, you consider it with all the siege tanks that Demo's going for, the siege tanks are a lot less mobile, so it's going to actually be a bit more difficult for Demo to push onto that creep over there. And this is actually one of the reasons why I think a lot of Terran players do prefer to go for those Widow Mines. They're a little bit easier to maneuver around.
we've got a small Zergling counterattack going to be working its way into the fourth of Demo. It's not like a huge number of Zerglings where he's just wrecking the economy of his opponent. And I mean, Demo, he's pushing further and further away or into the Zerg territory. He's starting to actually threaten the, I guess, what would be like the 4th base. But I mean, it's, I guess, technically the 5th. Or the...
Yeah. I gave up on counting the number of bases that these two players are taking and losing right now, Cyber. I'm just calling it the bottom right-hand expansion. But, you know, we see the Demo. Oh my god, these guys are going to be expanding right next to each other, basically.
Yeah, I love how finally, eventually, he's going to be taking kind of that left side base, which you would kind of expect to be the 4th base for Demo. He was like, hey, there was an Overlord there, man. I could have killed it off at, like, the 4-minute mark.
It's been there since, like, the 8-minute mark.
Yeah, exactly. He could have killed it off way earlier in the game, but, I mean, he's going to be taking his bases, and again, maintaining that income lead. Oh! Those Zerglings are just like, let's go. Oh, no, we can't do anything.
Yeah, losing a lot of those units over there to the siege tanks, and also realizing, oh man, you're taking that expansion. What am I going to do about that? Not a whole lot. GG
superior army, and with those mules, superior economy. But, I mean, Cham certainly did have a chance in that game, but you talked about the late game of Demo before the game actually began. We got to see that from Demo in the early game, definitely faltering, definitely not doing as well as Cham, and then just suddenly in the late game, he bought enough time, he got up those kind of not like super good engagements or super good drops even, but it was just that he was allowed to get away with them for so long. And it's like he was able to buy that much time, do damage here and there, deny bases when he could, and that's what actually allowed him to claw his way back into that game. And again, the late game that you talked about of Demo, so good.
Cyber. God, it's so frustrating. We talk about it, like, again, in case you're tuning in a little bit later into the broadcast. First of all, welcome to the SC2 Improved Team League. But we were talking about how players, you know, we have this, or like viewers have this fantasy of how things actually go, like when players are picking out who they're going to be sending out next and all this other stuff. And you also have this imagination of, like, players that are this really hard-working guys and everything. Of course, there's always the trolls who are like, oh my god, you got to play video games, blah, blah, blah. Like, oh my god, you don't know what it's like to work hard, etc. There are players that do work hard. But then there are some times I'm just like, you know what? Demo saying, you know what? I haven't played StarCraft for 5 days. I don't know how this game's going to go. And now he's saying, I guess playing for 5 days helps. Like, or sorry, not playing for 5 days helps. I'm like, god damn it, Demo, why are you so damn good?
Just shut up. Like, I want to be that good if I didn't play for 5 days. But.
Yeah, apparently, like, when you don't play StarCraft, when you don't practice, like, you get better. Actually, you know, that there is actually a phenomenon for that.
All right, here we go. Everyone's going to be talking about this. Are we just going to read the how to learn book on stream? You'll just actually become
the art of learning, man. Oh
You'll just actually become Jack Attack. No, I mean, it's definitely got some very valid points, but I don't want to get totally distracted on that. And
yeah.
All right, now we're just going to have that last episode of Meta all over again.
Welcome to the SC2 Improved Team League. Here on the show, we have Fear Dragon, Cybird, and the ghost that you don't see is actually Jack Attack. He's sitting in my ear telling me exactly what to say. No, I have much love for Jack Attack. He's a really awesome guy.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, like, it's always really interesting, though, because I do think it's a really cool phenomenon that I do want to just talk about really quickly, because I think it's interesting and something that a lot of people forget is that sometimes when you just constantly practice consistently, just like repeatedly for hours and hours every day, it's actually not the best way to learn. So you do want to take some breaks, and it makes everything feel a little bit fresher to you. And you can actually perform a lot better sometimes after not playing for a little bit. I don't know if people have actually experienced this before. Like, I think it's true not just in StarCraft, it's true in life. So don't be too hard on players when they say they take breaks. It's a good thing.
No, be extremely ridiculous on them. No one's allowed to play any game other than StarCraft 2.
If you're making at least $30 a month on StarCraft, you need to be playing at least 7.5 hours a day to 15.5 hours a day. Unless you're getting surgery done because of the carpal tunnel you're building up.
That too. It's like you can only not play StarCraft if you have broken your body by playing StarCraft.
If you're in the process of breaking it, no, that's not enough. You need to actually have your doctor's note saying you actually are not allowed to play StarCraft anymore. It's not enough to be getting to that point. This is not a preventative measure. It's just once you're there, we'll give you a little bit of leeway. Yeah, let's think a little bit about the maps that are left, because I actually have to. The players, of course, are going to be asking me what maps are left. Let's see. We have seen Nimbus, King Sejong Station, Overgrowth, and Merry-Go-Round. So the maps that are left are Catalina, Deadwing, Foxtrot, and I think that's it. Okay, it looks like we're going to be getting Catalina out from the next player, and the next player is going to be End of the Line.
Another Zerg player going to be coming out from NoDiceGaming. So they're really banking on a lot of Zerg. They were like, well, we've got one Protoss that we're going to send out in the beginning, and then only Zerg.
Cyber victory to the casters. We were saying, you know what, we would love to see Demo come out. Demo is such a good player. I think it'd be a really good choice against a player like Cham, who if you can bring it to the late game can really, you know, kind of do a really nice job against Cham. And Beast in the chat is now saying, like, thank God we listened to Fear Dragon, put it in Demo. I was about to play somebody else. Like, we're victorious, man. This is a win. I know casters that
we're actually the Fear Dragon team league. That's what this is. Casters
are in the weird position where, like, this is oh my god, I'm gonna be touching into like a really awkward like topic right now, but there have been complaints about a lot of like pro players who say, like, you know, casters, no matter what, no matter how well they do or how poorly they do, like at the end of the day, they win because they got to cast. They're not like the players who, like, if they don't play well that day, then they just kind of lose out. They don't get prize money, etc. Like, the casters still get paid. By the way, we're not getting paid. Just I want to put that out there.
I mean, I'm getting paid, but not in anything related to StarCraft 2. Like, I have a job.
Thought you were implying other things. We're gonna move on from that assumption and get these players into the game.
All right, Fear Dragon. Let's not go to the worst possible answer. But
I don't actually even remember where I was going with that. I was trying to go somewhere with that.
Casters are literally the worst people ever, I think.
Yeah, exactly. I just wanted to reiterate that, guys. Make sure that you don't follow either of us on Twitter from those links that you see down below, or follow this channel. I'm just kidding, guys. But no, I think it's really cool that these two players are honestly, they're pretty damn good, and I'm really happy that I didn't screw over Team Gravity by suggesting Demo, because that made me feel like a winner. It really did. I know that people joke that casters win anyway, regardless. That's what I was gonna say. But I do feel a little bit better. Oh, actually,
we don't always.
We actually don't. There are quite a few times.
The games are just really bad, and you're just like, I have to sit through this. Like, you can turn off the stream, but I have to sit through this.
That's some real talk right there, man. That's stuff that we don't actually talk about. But yeah, we're gonna go ahead and get this game started, as the next map is going to be Catalina, the choice of End of the Line, the Zerg player. And once again, we're going into that whole meta-analysis of, like, well, if you just sent out a Zerg player, do you send out another Zerg player? And that looks like it's going to be the answer from NoDiceGaming. They're saying, you know what? Demo, pretty damn good, but Cham, he played a very specific style. Is a style I've seen a couple of times where you don't really get the big anti-air units, but I've very rarely seen it work out past a certain point. Like, you have to do a lot of damage very early on. So we're going to go ahead and jump into the game and see if the next player is going to be playing it out any differently as we jump into the game on top of this Terran player down here in the bottom right-hand corner of the map, Catalina, the green Terran player representing Team Gravity, currently up 3-1, just has to win this last game to take the series. It is Gravity's Demo.
And on the left side, the red Zerg player playing for NoDiceGaming. I almost said End of the Line Gaming. Playing for NoDiceGaming. It's match point, which means he's got to take it to the limit. We do indeed have End of Line. But yeah, it's 3-1 for Team Gravity. They're going to be feeling very good. And we talked about kind of the analysis of, well, if you send out a Zerg player and they die to a Terran, do you send out another Zerg player to try to learn learn from what you can from the previous game? Or is it that you had a bunch of Zergs and one Protoss available today, and so you send out your Protoss first because toss OP, and then after that you're like, well, the only people we've got left in the Skype chat are Zergs. So
that actually I hear about that happening way more often than you would imagine. Like, a lot of the time it's just it has a lot to do with availability.
Yeah. So we can't read too far into it, but I mean, sometimes on 3-player maps, you send one Overlord in one direction, and then your second Overlord in a different direction. However, End of Line is like, nope, both Overlords in the same direction.
Yeah. What End of the Line is really doing?
It's the wrong way.
Yeah, I think right now, End of the Line, he sent out that initial Overlord to try and get a scout off on his opponent's base. That's pretty standard, but I like that he leaves this other Overlord back at home. He's leaving it as natural expansion because he wants to be aware of any kind of bunker shenanigans that could be going on. And he also went for the spawning pool first. He's saying, you know what, I am literally the last hope for my team to win this series. If we want to come back, I have to win 3 games in a row. I need to play it out safe. I need to make sure no kind of proxy shenanigans are going down or anything of the sort. He doesn't want to send out the early drone, it looks like, to kind of get any sort of drone scout. So instead he's just going to say, you know what, I'll get a scout off my opponent a little bit later, but I'll just make sure there's nothing crazy going down proxy-wise.
Alright, that is definitely fair enough, and yeah, I mean, at this point, I don't know how much the team is really banking on this, if they're like, hey, you know, End of Line, go out, win, lose, whatever, we don't care too much, or if they're like, End of Line, if you lose, you're kicked off of the team. I'm sure it's nothing quite that drastic, but I mean, there's always like that, you are our last hope, so, you know, please don't die to proxy 2 racks.
Yeah, that would actually be like the silliest and most unfortunate way. It's like, he does all these super duper awesome things, like he would hype him up, he's like, oh man, this guy, he can do it, he's, you know, gonna be able to take 3 games in a row, and then he just like dies to like a proxy 2 racks. He like sees the Raxes and just GG's out, doesn't even bother trying to defend. I'll be like, oh, well that just happened. No, luckily it's not gonna be anything of the sort. And
Planetary Fortress Rush.
Demo actually just managed to pick off 4 of those Zerglings already with that initial Reaper, and now he's going to be moving into this expansion. Like, this is sort of surprising to me that I keep calling it End of the Line. I keep inserting the, but End of Line sent in those Zerglings across the map and engaged the Reaper off of creep, which is sort of surprising to me. He ends up losing all of them. That makes it a little bit more annoying to try and actually defend.
Yeah, I mean, he does have the queens out, so he definitely bought a lot of time, and after this, it's just a lot of drones going to be following that up, which isn't too surprising at all. And as long as the queens can keep the Reaper at bay, with 3 queens, you may not have a huge amount to worry about, but the Reaper, it's moving off kind of towards the natural expansion. Shouldn't be able to get too much done with 2 queens there. He's going to at most have to hope to jump into the main base, but again, the Hellion follow-up may be the thing that End of Line actually has to worry about, because, as we mentioned, it's 3-1, so this is the end of the line.
This actually is the end of the line. There is no time for Dice Gaming over here. You can't take any kind of risks. And
they need to understand the gravity of this situation.
Exactly. You took the words literally straight out of my mouth. That is exactly what I was gonna say. I'm so glad we're on the same page.
Would you deem these what are these actually called? Oh my gosh, I can't remember the name.
These facts? These puns?
Puns. I said pros, but yeah. Do you deem these puns to be undesirable?
Let's just stop while we're still behind, Cyber. Well, we're not like drastically falling behind.
As everyone tunes out, they're like, well, I'm done.
Yeah, that was a good reason to like stop the stream. But Hellion's gonna be coming out for Demo. He's gonna be trying to put on that nice little standard pressure. But we actually do have the tech lab on top of the starboard. Yeah, there is a factory out, but there's, it looks like with the medevac coming out, or sorry, there is actually a medevac coming out, but with the tech lab down, I feel like there's going to be a Banshee follow-up, which worked out pretty damn well last game, wouldn't you say, Cyber?
For those of you who may have missed the last game, quick recap, there was a Banshee with like 27 kills.
It was like 40 by the end, man. And those were like not Zergling kills, those were like Banelings and drones, and he may have even gotten an Infestor for all I know, man. And roaches also. I think he killed off a couple of roaches.
He probably did, considering there were a lot of roaches. We do have 4 Hellions getting dropped into the main base of End of Line, and drones, they're not pulled off the line, which means we may be getting lots of free shots off. This does mean that they're not getting like them. Actually, this could be the lining them up. Yeah, exactly. That
6 drones. 9 drones. Oh, more drones. 14 drones killed. There's still 3 Hellions alive. Are you kidding me? This is doing an absurd amount of. How does Demo keep doing this?
Oh my. Well, I mean, it could have gone worse. That was pretty close to as bad as it realistically should have gone, but I mean, technically, it could have gone worse.
Okay, so just to put this into perspective, Cyber, in the last game, we had maybe a minute or two from now, around like the 9 or 10 minute mark,
Ooh.
we had around like 10 or so Hellions run in and suicide themselves and kill off 30 drones. This time we had just 4 Hellions drop in and kill off a large number, like a good 16 or so drones, 17 drones.
Widow Mines might be getting some fantastic shots as no, nothing happens. I mean, there is 2 Widow Mines and 4 Marines in this medevac, but there's actually nothing happening. Maybe the Banshee will provide a little bit of distraction as it's heading over to the north side at kind of that third base location. All right, here's the medevac going to be dropping Marines, and can the Widow Mines get some fantastic shots off? Hopefully there's not just friendly fire, but there's 1 and 2.
Nice pick. I think Demo learned his lesson from the last game. Actually picks up his Marines when the Widow Mine shots went off, but the medevac does get cleaned up, and so do these Widow Mines. So 10 drones killed for the drop. It's neither here or there. I think it's definitely nice just because, well, first of all, he still has the Banshee live. Oh my god, the Banshee's picking up more drones.
Oh my.
And I feel like this, he's just, in conjunction with the damage he did earlier, this is working out so well for Demo.
I don't know that this is for sure going to be a case of, like, there's just a push out from Demo and he just ends the game right there. But
yeah,
he's done quite a bit of damage to our Zerg friend here. He's trying to establish that third base, but again, with all of the drones he's lost, he's going to have a difficult time actually saturating it. 2 Banshees are out on the map, and that production tab, Demo is just getting everything in the books that he can at this point. And the Banshees, and there's 4 crawlers around. So
oh no, Demo, don't engage that! Oh my god, 3 Banshees. This is actually, this is going to start to get a little bit scary. When you have 3 Banshees with Cloak on the map, you can actually start to take out some of those like 2 or 3 queens that are sitting around ready to defend the bases. You can start to kill them. You can start to kill Spore Crawlers with 3 Banshees.
This is actually going to be potentially pretty crazy. 1 goes down, doesn't have 3 anymore. And of course, the thing about going for Cloak is if there's Overseers and Spore Crawlers there, it really doesn't matter.
You know, it doesn't matter quite as much. You can still do some nice kiting action, trying getting out of range, make sure the queens don't really do too much damage, but yeah, he doesn't really actually need to be cloaked right now, but oh my god, he's found the sweet spot. He's gonna be able to go after that third expansion. It's getting pretty low on health, actually. Yep,
the queen will eventually be coming on over, and just, again, he keeps finding these...
It's only 1 queen.
Out of range of that Spore Crawler. I think the queen might be able to kill off 1 more Banshee. There we go. Finally whittling those numbers down. But, again, just playing kind of the cat and mouse game with the queen and Banshee, but there is going to be the third base, and lots of mules, lots of SCVs getting dropped onto that third base. Now, fortunately, there are finally Hydras out on the map for end of line. He's finally been able to saturate and keep that third base alive. But
it's amazing what you could do, Cybert, when you have anti-air units versus air units.
Wow, what a concept. Oh, man. We're just making that one guy who
I'm
totally
so sorry,
like,
Cham, I love you, but man, that was...
I imagine Cham in like every other game is just the best at killing air units. Like he never messes it up, and then of course in that game he messes it up, and we're just gonna harass him about it forever. But basically what we're here for. Now, lots of mules getting dropped down on this third base, as I mentioned, and if you take a look at that income tab, it is just absolutely fantastic for our Terran player. Demo, not so great for end of line.
Yeah, end of line, I mean, he's droned up more than Cham did in that last game, and he's kind of responded a little bit differently from taking that kind of big drone harassment. Actually, it's a little bit supply blocked over here. Very, very annoying to have that happen right now, especially, oh my god, actually, that supply block actually may come as a really, really big blow for end of line right now, because the drop is going to be coming in, and normally you can try and defend the drop.
We've actually got a big engagement here, basically at the front door of Demo, dropping some mules right onto the front line. I'm not sure if that was a misclick or if he actually just thinks he's going to be winning the game with that drop.
I mean, the drop could still do some nice damage over here.
Yeah. All right, there's some drones finally going to be getting picked off. How many will they actually get? The roaches are just now popping out to finally deal with this. And again, that medevac is finding the sweet spot of not actually taking too much damage.
Indeed, it's going to get out of there. I think that he was a little bit busy with that engagement that was happening that you were talking about as well. Could have moved in maybe just a couple of seconds earlier and would have gotten in there before the reinforcements popped out. But now Demo, he still does have that big scary army. He has 3 Sea Shank. This is something I really like about Demo, is that he's one of the few Terran players that's not afraid to go for the Sea Shanks over the Widow Mines in massive, massive amounts. But Hydralis Roach, man, this is a scary army.
Yep, the concave is pretty darn sick for end of line. He's just crushing through the Terran forces, and now he's directly on top of the tanks. And Demo just does not even unsiege, which I do like, because sometimes when players, they're like, I gotta retreat my army, and it's like, well, no, at this point, it's actually too late. So you may as well just keep them there and they get those last few shots off.
Yeah.
But at any rate, we do have, looks like a 4th command center is going to be trying to get established, but this Zerg army, it's pretty scary. It is coming down here. I don't know that it's necessarily game-ending, attacking into the reinforcements of Demo, but it is enough to at least keep Demo on his toes.
Yeah, I think the 4th expansion should actually be okay with End of Line now backing out, but End of Line actually getting a drop, and actually doing a good job picking off that drop, and honestly, I'm really impressed with how End of Line has been playing this out so far. I was a little bit concerned by that early game start. He's also still at only 50 drones, which kind of hurts.
I think that drop did a bit more damage than it should have been allowed to. Unfortunately, his army had already moved out at that point, so good on Demo for finding a nice timing. Now, we do have a 4 medevac drop that is moving out. We've got some Marauders and Marines mixed in here, so this is a lot of damage output. 3-3 just now beginning for our Terran player, so it's not going to be quite ready for this drop. Ooh, there's the big stim in, and lots of drones should be getting fired up here.
Oh, maybe you can take out that lair.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about. Is just absolutely trashes it, and the drones will be evacuating. The army moves out across the map. Goodbye spawning pool as well, and there's not an immediate rebuilding of this spawning pool, so
he's just going for it.
Of damage, yeah. He's moving all the way out across the map. Oh, attacking into siege tanks. I don't know if you want to necessarily do that, but you've got no choice.
Well, it's a pretty good spread over here from Chem. Is it going to be enough? He wins on the bottom side of the engagement. The Banelings now rolling and cleaning up the Marines and Marauders without those 4 medevacs worth of units. He's able to clean up all those siege tanks. More units now coming in from Demo. The drop is back.
Yeah, the drop now finally going to be reinforcing. There's the GG. Well played. Demo takes the win, and Team Gravity will be taking the 4-1 over Team NoDiceGaming.
And congratulations to Team Gravity. Very well played, of course, by the 2 MVPs for Team Gravity, Jig and Demo. And, oh man, that was a really cool game. This is what I meant, man. It's not... Okay, Cham is actually a really damn good player, okay? I've seen him take some really solid wins over a lot of really great players, especially in things like Copa America. But Demo is actually just a monster, okay? He is one of the really big up-and-coming Terran players who are really, really scary, and you have to be on the lookout for. You have to be very, very wary about this guy, because he will just gut you like a fish if you move out at the wrong time with those drops, man. He loves his drops.
Indeed, and it looked like maybe End of Line would be able to bring it back with that last attack, but not nearly enough punch through, and with those reinforcements, Demo, again, he is a scary, scary player. So... Team Gravity, I think that means they're going to be grabbing, like, what? There's 3 points for that overall?
Yeah, 3 points. They went 4-1 in that series, and that's actually going to put them in a really nice spot. I think they'll be 1 point behind NoDiceGaming now, if I'm correct. Because, yeah, they'll be grabbing 3 points. NoDiceGaming gaming going to lose 3 points. So they'll be going down to 8 points. Yeah, it'll be 8 points for NoDiceGaming, 7 points for Team Gravity. So Team Gravity, they were behind by a good, like, I want to say 7 points, but they're catching up, man. They're right on NoDiceGaming's tail. So very, very close. And of course, I think that they're going to be looking to be in a very strong position. Top 3 teams advance. So Team Gravity still looking very, very strong to make it over to the playoffs. But really, really great series over there. I think Team Gravity, definitely one of the big up-and-coming teams in North America. I think NoDiceGaming also had already earned a lot of respect from a lot of people. So I think people already kind of know NoDiceGaming. It's a team that you got to be on the lookout for.
And certainly, I don't know how new of a team they are, but I'm not exactly familiar with them. So hopefully this means that we're going to be seeing more of them in the future and that their players will just be improving from this point because they've got a good base to work with. And from here, I mean, those were some pretty fun matches. Were they necessarily the best players in the world duking it out? No. No one has any, like, delusions of, oh my gosh, these are the best players in the world. But some fun games of StarCraft to be had and some solid play. So hopefully in the future, these players are just going to be bringing more fantastic games.
Indeed. And of course, you guys should all go check out these players and the teams at Team Gravity over on Twitter and at NoDiceGaming over on Twitter. And of course, Cyber, where can people catch you at? Because I know that you have your own YouTube channel and all that other stuff that I'm sure these StarCraft ladies and gentlemen would actually be very interested in.
They'd be super interested in newbie Command and Conquer gameplay. I do indeed cast Command and Conquer, and I don't cast noobs. I'd cast the higher level players, but
I don't cast noobs, okay? I cast the high level play.
But there's lots of things that initially you'd look at Command and Conquer and be like, this is terrible, which is understandable because it has its fault. But if you're interested in seeing some of that, you can check me out on Twitter at CNCCybert and YouTube.com/CNCCybert.
And of course, if you did enjoy my aspect of the commentary, my name is Fear Dragon, and you can actually just follow me over here on this channel if you want to catch more of that. I also do a show called Breaking Out that actually highlights up-and-coming North American players on this very channel, including players, hopefully, maybe in the future, like Demo or something. Just saying, Demo.
Maybe
you'll apply and all that stuff. I'm also really quickly just going to respond to this because this has been going on in the chat. Because we've been teasing Beast a little bit from Team Gravity, who's like the manager, teasing his proxy 2 racks. I'm not gonna show match Beast because he will wreck me. Okay, he's gonna go for the proxy 1 racks, and I'm gonna be sitting there like, I'm still getting out my first pylon. How do you have a barracks and 4 Marines finished up?
You don't go for like the regular pylon timing. You wait until you're supply blocked for 3 minutes.
Yeah, my build is actually, I'm going to proxy my pylon and then decide I don't want to go for the proxy 2 gate. And then I just build a second pylon on my main base. I'm like, yeah, I'll just start Chrono Boost out my probes again. Like, so yeah, I'm not going to do the show match versus Beast. But, actually Beast is saying that the Liquipedia is not entirely updated just yet. They actually have more points than NoDiceGaming now, as they actually got a 4-0 last week. So still very, very awesome to see these teams. Like, they are the top teams right now in Group A for the SC2 Improved Team League America. And of course, if you want to check out SC2, more of SC2 Improved League America, be sure to go follow Wardy. I think it's twitch.tv/Wardy, WARDIII. There are 3 I's in Wardy. His parents were very, very unforgiving in how exactly it had to be spelled. They maybe didn't entirely understand how the alphabet works, and that I don't think there's any word that actually has 3 letters in a row. I can't think of a single word that actually has 3 letters in a row, but Wardy has 3 letters in Wardy. It's 3 I's, so go follow that. That's where SC2 Improved Team League is normally actually cast. He actually organizes and runs the entire league, and normally actually does it in Europe. I just want to tell you guys how hard-working Wardy is, okay? This guy has been doing this team league now for, I think, 2 or so seasons in Europe. And he lives in Europe. He is a European. And so he said, you know what? I think that North America, there's a lot of North Americans who are interested in this team league because he kind of got a little bit of a feel for that. He said, you know what? Let's do it. So he stays up constantly to 2 or 3 in the morning to cast these American Team League matches while also doing everything else and also still running the European Team League. It is absolutely insane. Go give this guy some love for running this Team League. And, yeah, okay, Cybert, I've talked out all of the things that I have to say. I've exhausted everybody, including their probably patience with me, but that's good because we're done with this series. We're done with today's broadcast. So thank you all so much for tuning in. I want to give one final shout out to youtube.com/HuskyByTheGeek for all the music you guys hear during the downtime and all the breaks. Of course, he's approved and I have his official permission to play all this stuff, so I don't actually get Twitch VODs flagged at all. The audio exists. And
the audio is real.
The audio is real.
Final sponsors to thank.
Yes, there is, of course, I want to thank you, give a big thank you to, of course, Let's Kung Fu. Let's Kung Fu actually does a nice sponsorship for the prize pool of the SC2 Improved Team League, and it's actually run by youtube.com/FilthyRake. He's a really, really awesome guy. He actually does StarCraft 2 commentary, as well as even does just kind of general interviews and all kinds of stuff. Actually, if you, I think the way, he actually sponsored Destiny's tournament as well, and the way that he told Destiny to describe it was he's kind of like a all-around StarCraft guy, like a mini Day 9, which was really interesting the way to describe it. But regardless, he does a lot of different stuff. So if you like StarCraft, it's definitely worth checking him out. youtube.com/FilthyRake.
Yeah, and he definitely puts a lot of love into the StarCraft 2 scene, specifically the North American scene. I don't know how much outside of North America, but yeah, definitely puts a lot of love into the StarCraft 2 scene. So big thanks to him and the other sponsor.
Other sponsor, of course, Zowie. Zowie is actually really, really awesome. They've been invested in StarCraft for a good chunk of time now, and I've only heard positive things about their keyboards, their devices, their peripherals, and everything. So definitely give them some love. And if you, when you are actually considering getting your keyboard, maybe it's not today, maybe it's in a couple months from now, and maybe it's even next year. Do consider Zowie, because honestly, they do have some really great peripherals and great stuff, and they actually do a really good job of supporting the esports, especially NA scene. I mean, they're sponsoring this NA esports team league, and I think they also sponsor the EU one, but then they also actually run the Zowie NA Rumble, which is a North American only kind of tournament that happens every month. Really cool stuff from Zowie. Definitely check them out and consider them. You might not need to hear about them today, but in the future, when you are considering getting a mouse, a keyboard, a headset, whatever it is, just look them up, because they're definitely worth it.
Yeah, I wasn't too familiar with Zowie before this, but I know someone on the StarCraft 2 subreddit just posted like a KT Rolster Zowie mouse, and I was like, all right.
Oh yeah,
all right.
man.
I can definitely,
That's
respect
one
the
way to get.
novelty
That's
things.
one way to get it right. It's like, I don't think I'm gonna get a Zowie mouse because it's signed by all of KT Roster.
No, I think it just had like their logo on it. I don't think it was signed by them.
I don't think I actually saw that post. Yeah. So I'm just assuming.
But I mean, if I had a mouse signed by Flash, I'd be like, yeah, this totally makes me.
Yeah, this is actually never getting used. This is actually going to go to my Flash shrine. That's like, it's in that direction, right there. I'm pointing toward my Flash shrine. We're not going to talk anymore about that. We're actually not going to keep you guys here any longer. Thank you all so much for tuning in, especially if you're watching this through Team Liquid. Hope you do consider following the channel and also check out more of the SC2 Improved Team League America. Have a good night, guys, and we'll see you next time.